First off, if you're gonna have a baby in the hospital, refuse the resident. They'll come in and they'll introduce themselves as a resident doctor. And so all your mind hears is doctor. But if it's July, they've been a doctor for literally 3 minutes and they're fresh out of medical school. And they'll do your whole care. You'll have no idea that they're like a student, which is fine. Students need to learn. But this resident was placing a Foley balloon, which is like an induction method. And I've seen hundreds of them placed. And I've never seen a woman bleed, never once. And the table is like dripping in blood. And I'm like, yes, exactly. I'm like, we go outside the room, like, what happened? What went wrong? Like, I've never seen that much blood with a displacement. And he goes, oh, that's normal. They all bleed. No, it's not normal. We're losing the humanity in our society. You know, you feel that where it's like people don't realize that we're people anymore. They forget they're taking care of a person. And it happens a lot in teaching hospitals where like you feel like a number. And moms will say that, like, I just felt like a number. I'm sorry, but you were just a number. We literally called you room number 3 the entire stay. You have the right to know that your hospital you're going to has a higher C-section rate, has a high infection rate, has a high NICU transfer rate, because that area has like 10 hospitals and those other hospitals aren't experiencing the same thing. And the nurse that's working with me goes, oh yeah, everyone here gets infected. Just hang the antibiotics to the first sign of fever, you'll never be able to get the fever down. And it was true. I hung more antibiotics at that hospital than I have in my entire career. You're a really good nurse. There's not a reason to fire you, so welcome back. Barely. Now you can't go into a patient room by yourself. You're on a 90-day action plan. Like, I couldn't say anything negative about COVID. There was like these wipes that we had, and I would tell patients, I'd like give the patients the wipes. I'd be like, you need to read this. It's informed consent. They get to decide if they want to do it. All these like little like jabs. Make sure you're giving your vaccines. I'm like, has there been a complaint about vaccines? Am I charting that my babies don't get vaccines? I'm like, I do what mom wants.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my podcast. And today I am so excited to be joined by my friend, Miss Jess Scheidemann. Hello. So I am really excited to be interviewing Jess today for a lot of different reasons. But really the main point of our conversation and what we're going to talk about today is the topic of birth. Jess is a really beautiful human first off, but she's just a really interesting person to talk to because Jess's background is in more traditional like labor and delivery in the hospital, and Jess no longer works within the hospital system and is now a full-blown, like a free birther basically, and like a home birth, natural birth advocate. And Jess was, I called her my fake doula in pregnancy because we never actually like officially like, okay, Jess, you're officially my doula. And this is part of what I mean about Jess just being an amazing person. She pretty much just like swept into my life or came into my life or my DMs, my texts, my phone, and was like, hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything when you're pregnant, like I'm happy to support you in whatever capacity that means. And she basically was my doula. And you guys know that I had a really terrifying pregnancy, and there was a lot of unknown, a lot of fear, a lot of questions. And I don't want to like down myself, but I guess I'll just say, I don't know if I even could have done it if it wasn't for Jess.
That's not true.
And like I said, I don't want to down myself, but like, I can't even tell you how much I've had this conversation with Dan, with my parents, just how much she supported me through my pregnancy. And so I'm excited that you've agreed to come on and talk with everyone, because in your own words, you do a good job of, I think you said, like reminding people of truth, like bringing truth back to a situation. So Jess Scheidemann, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And really, like your whole pregnancy, all I did was remind you to listen to you.
Dude.
You know what I mean? I was just that voice constantly like, well, what do you think? And that's all you needed was someone to just be like, you have the wisdom within you. So what's the wisdom? What is it? Tell me, what do you need?
It's so funny too, because I would get so, not actually mad, we're just saying it for the sense, I get so mad because I always knew when I would tell Jess something, I'm like, she's gonna be like, what do you think? How do you feel? Tap into yourself. And I'm like, I don't know, that's why I'm messaging you. But it was so beautiful because you do know. And that's kind of part of what she was walking me through and helping me discern between the knowing and the fear that can sometimes be just piled on top of that knowing and makes it like hard to decipher the knowing. You know what I mean? So, okay, Jess, where to begin? Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about your background, like how you got into nursing, all of that?
Yeah, so I have been in the nursing realm since out of high school. So it's like 2005.
Oh, I didn't know you went right in out of high school.
Yeah, so I was a CNA though. I was a certified nurse assistant.
Okay.
And I worked in a nursing home with old people.
Okay, that's cool.
And I loved it, like dementia. I love dementia patients. I love joining them where they're at. You know what I mean? So like so many people spend their time trying to like help dementia people come back to reality. I'm like, reality kind of sucks. You know what I mean? Like, you're old,
tough.
you're in a diaper.
Especially at that,
like, you know what I mean? You're in a nursing home. Where's your family?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to live in your reality with you, where your kids are still young and where things are happy. Like, why are we always bringing them back? And so I loved that job.
That's so on brand for you. This is great.
Right? I love old people.
Yeah.
And then it's a hard job because so many people are so burnt. It's all the whole medical system, right?
Yeah.
We have so many people who are so burnt out. And so it's like you're fighting and like I'm finding bed sores on people and nobody cares and nobody's taking care of them.
Oof.
I realized I was very like innocent and naive when I worked there. But I realized like I watched drug trafficking on that unit and I had no idea. Like once I went to nursing school, I was like, oh my gosh, they like literally they'd go to the bathroom and pretend like they were flushing narcotics and they'd pass the sheets around that were full of pills. I'm like, I didn't know.
Wait, who would? The patients?
The other CNAs
Oh
and the
my
med passers,
gosh.
yeah. And I just didn't realize like they would do that when a patient passed. So they'd like pretend to flush the drugs and then like, you know.
Because now the drugs aren't needed anymore.
Now the drugs aren't
so
needed
instead
anymore.
They
were
would
like,
just
as far as I know, they
disseminate.
weren't stealing drugs from patients, but I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Wow.
And
what a trip.
right. And so I lost my second favorite patient, Penny. She was like Peggy, not Penny. She was like this tiny little woman, and I was a smoker at the time, so I'd like go out there and I'd smoke with her, and we'd like talk about her kids and pretend like, you know, we were like 50 years younger than we were than she was. And she passed, and I was just like, this job is too hard. It was just like really draining for me.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to my friend, and she's like, come to labor and delivery, come wipe little baby bottoms. Like she works there as a nurse, and she's like, I'll help you get a job as a CNA.
Wow.
And so I did. I applied, and I got the job.
Huh.
And so that's how I started my career in labor and delivery, was actually as a CNA. And so I'd help with breastfeeding, I would do baby baths, and I would do footprints, which is my favorite. I love doing baby footprints. I'm very good at it. It's like a skill that I like. I have cultivated this skill. I'm proud.
That's
right?
so sweet.
And then I went to nursing school, and even in nursing school, I didn't know I was gonna be a labor and delivery nurse. I hadn't seen a birth yet, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go and do like the normal course of labor of like nursing, where you go to med surg and you get your skills. And then I saw my first birth, and I was like, oh no, this is where I belong. You know what I mean? And so
You saw it when you were in nursing school.
I was in nursing school,
Okay.
yeah. And I was actually working on the unit that I was also precepting as a nurse, which was really weird because like I'd go to work one day and I'd be a CNA and I'd do like, you know, supportive stuff and do blood pressures, and I couldn't practice as a nurse. And the next day I'd be the patient's nurse. You know what I mean? Like yesterday I wasn't your nurse, today it was
that's
just
such a trip.
It was so weird. And so that's actually the first where I got hired too. So like I spent most of my career there. And I never actually practiced as a nurse. I was in Southern Oregon in Medford. And when I graduated nursing school, I got hired there, and I got like kind of bullied into applying for a job in Portland by my brother-in-law.
Okay.
And he just kept bothering me. And so finally just like make the text messages and the calls stop. I applied just so like he would stop. And I got the job. And like on a whim, I was like, Ryan, we're moving to Portland. Like
here we go.
We're doing it. Like
We're
literally,
gonna
I think
deliver
my friends
babies
were
in
like
Portland.
shocked. We're like, I was literally like, I'm going away party for myself because we're leaving next week. Like it was so fast.
Wow.
And then I got up to Portland. So Southern Oregon still VBACs aren't allowed. So vaginal birth after a C-section.
What?
And they started barely allowing them in the hospital.
Oh.
And it's a large hospital with a large NICU, largest hospital within 500 miles.
Wow.
And so I started my career believing that not only were VBACs bad, but they were dangerous, and that any woman who decided to come in and have a VBAC, because you have people that do that, they were endangering their babies and they were putting their life at risk. That's how I started my career, right?
Okay, that's got to be such a trip to be living the ride of watching yourself go from that to where you are now.
Right?
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
And so then I go up to Portland, and VBACs are normal, and all the hospitals do VBACs, and it's like this. I'm like, what do you mean? And so I've always been kind of a hippie nurse, right? Like I've always questioned things,
Yeah.
and you know, even a paper in nursing school was the side effects of epidurals. Like I've always been interested in
Even the
knowing
what?
Side effects of epidurals.
What is? I didn't hear the first line.
Oh, in nursing school.
Sorry.
In nursing
Oh,
school.
one of your papers was about that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So like
I
I've
missed that
always,
part.
sorry, I talk fast.
No, you're okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
So
and
one of your
like,
papers was about side effects of
Yes.
epidurals even when you were in nursing
in
school.
nursing school. So I've always questioned things. I've always been that person who wants like both sides of every story.
Yeah. And so seeing that made you realize, like, wait, even within the medical system, there's differentiation of views
Yes.
here, like big time.
I mean, really, I grew up, for the first part of my career, I thought that VBACs were dangerous. Like, I had no idea. And that's how much the medical system is affected by, you know, thoughts on the unit. Not science-backed, right? Because we know that VBACs are totally safe now.
Yeah.
I know that. And that was a huge eye-opener for me, because when I realized that just by moving 4 hours north, you know what I mean? It's 4 hours away.
Yeah.
That now VBACs are safe.
Yeah.
And VBACs are normal, and VBACs are, like, encouraged.
Yeah.
It made me, that was like another layer of like, you know, making me question the medical system.
Okay, how come the rules vary so much state by state? So like we live in North Idaho, we live close to the border of Washington. And when I was picking my midwife, I purposefully picked someone that was in both states because our rules are so different. Like I almost by the end, I was like, do I need to become a birth advocate in Idaho? Like what the heck?
Yes,
you can't go past 42 weeks here. And I think that is so arbitrary and weird. But what is it that makes it different state by state?
It's just politics.
So just people, I mean...
Literally somebody in a room making up laws. And I don't know who makes up the laws. Honestly, I haven't done enough, I haven't researched it enough.
You don't know enough to know if it's like the nurses board or something petitioning for this or whatever.
I don't know who makes the rules,
Didn't know if you knew that. Okay, so you were like, okay, 4 hours away, totally different situation, what the heck?
Different rules, yeah. It's like, the doctor's going to decide. So really what I found out in Southern Oregon, it was anesthesiology. They didn't want to stay in-house. And so they basically, since they were the only group that practiced, they got to dictate all the rules. And so they said, we're not going to do VBACs. We refuse to stay in the hospital.
Okay.
And like, I saw horrible things in that hospital. I saw 2 uterine ruptures where like the uterus comes apart and they had to have a C-section with local anesthetics because we didn't have anesthesia yet.
Oh.
Yes, like horrible things. So now things are changing there. Anesthesia has to stay in-house. There's a second anesthesia group that has come into Southern Oregon.
Okay.
And so now there's a little bit of, what's that word?
Like competition?
Competition, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so things are changing now because there's competition.
Wow. Okay, so I'm jumping in the podcast straight up mom style. You wouldn't know this if you're just listening to the audio, but I'm actually driving in my car right now on the way to the chiropractor. Very exciting times. And I wanted to shout out the first sponsor of this video, and that is Honeymark. I am obsessed with Honeymark. Speaking of mom life things, Honeymark makes the best bathing suits, in my opinion, specifically for moms, because not only are they breastfeeding friendly, but they are modest. They are so cute. They are the easiest bathing suits to just run around the beach, the lake, the pool, chase your kids. If you're on vacation, I've seen people say like you just put on that one swim leisure outfit because they're literally like dresses and rompers, and you can wear them in the hotel, to breakfast, out by the pool, out around the town. They're incredible. Also, one thing that people get worried about, I've mentioned this before if you've heard me give the spiel, but it's so amazing. The fabric does not stretch. Like when it's soaking wet, you would assume that it would, like the weight of the water would stretch the fabric, or at least that it would stretch over time, but it doesn't. I've had some of my Honeymark suits now for years and they just hold their shape. They're like magic, absolutely incredible. I can't recommend them enough. So cute, so amazing. I have a discount code, and if you use my discount code, thank you in advance. It is Nikki10 for 10% off. You will not regret your purchase. Amazing. Nikki10, 10% off. Let's hop back into the interview. Okay, so you get to this hospital, you're seeing all these crazy things.
Yep.
So how long were you at that hospital?
In Southern Oregon?
Yeah, the one that you moved to Portland for. Or the Portland
I was
hospital.
there for like 3 years. I graduated in 2000. Like I have to do the math.
No, sorry.
2010. Yeah, I was there for 3 years.
Okay, where'd you go after that?
To Portland. And so I only practiced as a CNA, like a nurse assistant, and as a nursing student in Southern Oregon. And then I started my career in Portland. And I really liked the hospital I started at. And I think it was a good hospital for me to start at because they really did do a lot of evidence-based stuff.
Okay.
And they really, I feel like of all the hospitals I've worked at, the legacy system up in Portland, they really do care. I feel like they have good educators. I feel like part of it is the hospital I started at was a small community hospital.
Okay.
We had one group of doctors who trusted birth, who wanted to sleep in the night. You know what I mean? Like they didn't want to do things because they're not there. Like there wasn't that feeling of like every other hospital I've worked at, it's like we have to get things done before the next shift comes. And so we make decisions based on setting up the next shift for success versus decisions on what's best for patient.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happened less at that hospital.
Wow.
And I can even remember I loved this doctor, Dr. Conger. He's amazing. And I call him in the middle of the night. I'm like, my patient has a fever. He goes, give her some Tylenol. And I call him back. He goes, Jess, you have to let the Tylenol work. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, cool your jets. It's going to be fine. And that's like, a lot of the doctors were like that. They were old school. They were older. They trusted birth.
They weren't super fear-driven.
They weren't fear-driven,
to like control every...
Yeah, and so it was a good place to start my career. And it wasn't perfect, right? No hospital is perfect. But I think it helps when there's no pediatrician in the hospital and there's no OB in the hospital. Yeah.
What?
Which would be the opposite, right?
That's so interesting. Why do you think that is?
Because we don't want to sit on our hands. Because doctors and nurses don't want to just sit and do nothing.
Okay,
they
so
want
it becomes
to look
too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing.
It's like we have to keep busy. We have to keep doing things. Have you gotten this done?
Interesting.
And so then I went to a new hospital system. And I'm not going to name the hospital system because I am suing them. And so I'm trying not to I'm trying to make sure I walk that line of not saying bad things about them.
Yeah.
But...
Are you even allowed to say why you're suing them?
Yeah, I share that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That hospital system has hospitalists, has residents, has pediatricians on call.
Okay.
And I watched the whole dynamics of birth change at that hospital, where everything was fear-driven, and we're always trying to find something wrong. Like, I felt like the first hospital I worked, they were looking for normal. which I think is rare in today's society. I feel like most of the hospitals are searching for, we're taught pathology is what you learn in nursing school, medical school, right? Like we're always looking for something to go wrong. And so I feel like mothers are sent into the hospital and you can't prove that you are not high risk until you've been discharged,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like you're a walking emergency until you've signed the paperwork to go out the door. Are you going to hemorrhage? Is your blood pressure going to spike? Are you going to have all these things happen? And so that hospital was less like that. And then the hospital system I went to, that's all it was. It was like everyone was a walking emergency. Every baby was potentially sick. And so like I watched babies get worked up for crazy things in that hospital. And it was just because there was a pediatrician and her job is to be there, right?
Yeah.
It's versus a pediatrician that comes in the morning of that you're going to see in the clinic later on.
Yeah.
Like a pediatrician that's invested in your family doesn't want your kid to be sick.
Yeah.
And not that pediatrician wants your kid to be sick either.
But
it's
the
fear.
lens in which they're looking through. Yes,
Yeah.
this is what I was terrified of in my pregnancy. And I could have been totally wrong. Everybody needs to know this. I'm not saying I was right. But I felt deep in my gut that if I were to enter the hospital system at all with my pregnancy, that because of my demeanor, just the way I carry myself, the drama that I sometimes bring to situations, I felt like potentially something that wasn't an emergency was going to read as an emergency. Yeah. And there was going to be things taken as like, this is a problem, that's a problem, when it maybe wasn't even a problem. And so even though it was scary to kind of navigate and figure that out, I wasn't alone, first off, between you and my midwife, but also it was like I'd rather kind of navigate it alone in that sense because I really didn't want it to turn into an emergency if it wasn't an emergency.
Yeah. Well, and you were already navigating your own anxiety, and then to add on other people's anxiety on top of it, it's just too much.
Yes, and at that point, you might actually create an emergency. Like I interviewed Christy, I'm not saying her last name on the podcast, I forgot, but I interviewed Christy like 2 weeks ago, and she was talking about how she sees all the time in postpartum units that like if someone walks in that the person doesn't like, or like a relative that's stressful to them, their blood pressure spikes up, and it's like, I feel like that would have been me, like creating an emergency just out of my own stress.
Right.
And
then you get worked up for everything, and that causes more stress.
Yes.
Michelle Adant calls it the nocebo effect. So placebo effect, right?
Yes.
Where it's like we take a pill and something good happens. Nocebo effect happens a lot in OB care, where we tell you that you're high risk. Well, we're going to have you take baby aspirin, and you're high risk for preeclampsia, and we're checking you for and we just, every appointment, we're talking about preeclampsia, and we're checking you again, and then mom develops preeclampsia.
Yeah.
She's been convinced since 8 weeks that she was going to get preeclampsia.
Yeah.
Would she have got it had she had a different doctor? We don't know. You know what I mean? There's no studies on that. But like, you can only plant fear for so long before it becomes someone's reality because our minds are so strong and so powerful. This in a negative way sometimes.
Totally. This is the mystery of birth that I feel like, and I mean, I know this is talked about all over the space, that like the Western medical system doesn't get because they can't quantify it. Like why things like being in your own environment and being comfortable produces a better outcome. It's like, man, when we've talked about, like I said, this has been talked about to death, for lack of a better phrase. That's like the discomfort leads to bad situations because you're not letting birth biologically unfold how it should. So that's just, that's fascinating to me.
Well, stress creates disease.
Exactly. I didn't like that you said disease.
Yeah. I didn't sleep very good last night.
Like me neither. We are on the same. We're like we're here, right?
Well,
we're
I mumble as it is, and it's like the mumbling when I'm tired is a little extra.
No, you're good. Yeah, stress creates disease. Yeah, I'm trying to not take this from you and go off on my own rant, but I just agree with you so much. So, okay, you liked the hospital in Portland a lot. So how long were you at that hospital?
I was at that hospital for 3 years. And at that hospital, so Ryan and I were newly married, and I hadn't been on birth control for a long time and not got pregnant. And so it's like the next layer of finding my way to natural health is like, I go to the doctor and I'm like, I'm not getting pregnant and I'm young and I'm only cycling 4 times a year. Like, what's up? And they're like, well, you have PCOS and here's some metformin and here's some Clomid and you'll get pregnant. And I'm like, so that doesn't really feel satisfying to me. Like, I want to know why I'm not cycling. I want to know why I have PCOS. I want to know, like, I want to know the why.
Yes.
I don't want just pills. And also, I am super sensitive to drugs. Like, if I take NyQuil, I'm gone for like 48 hours. Like, legit. Like, I'll see you guys in a couple days. I'm sleeping. Like, I'm sleeping. I'm like, if I take Clomid, I'm going to have triplets. Like,
oh my gosh,
you know what I mean? There's no way I'm not going to have triplets. I'm like, plus, I want to know why. And so I started experimenting on my own body. Like, why aren't I cycling? I started reading books and diving into insulin resistance, and which is like 10, 11 years ago, before it was really like, being talked about.
Yeah, more mainstream now.
And so it just started like, I tried vegan for 9 months. I tried paleo. I tried all these different diets until I found the perfect recipe for my body. And what's kind of cool is like the first time I was going to have the first time in my entire life, I'm 24 years old, that I was going to have a 28-day cycle, I got a positive instead.
Oh my gosh.
And that's Everett. Isn't that cool?
That's so wild.
I worked so hard to heal my body. And again, that was like another letdown of the medical system of like, I'm sick and I need support and I'm here for support.
Yeah.
And you're just going to give me drugs.
Yeah.
And I don't want just drugs. I want to heal. You know what I mean? I want deep down healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's just been my life. Like, you know, where I get these like hints. I've learned a lot from the women who have birthed with me. You know what I mean? And like, there are stories that have legit changed me. And I'm like, oh, you know, these little seeds that have been planted by people who didn't know they were planting seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even like the first home birth nurse I talked to, I remember thinking she was insane. She's like, yeah, I'm having a home birth. I'm like, what do you mean you're having a home birth? That's so dangerous.
Wait, so this was a nurse in the hospital? Okay.
And everyone thought she was crazy. I wish I knew her name now so I could reach out and be like, I joined you.
Look at how my life has changed completely.
Like, I've joined you. Because I feel like she knew that I was like going to join her.
Yes,
and I don't know her name. Like, I couldn't even try to make up her name right now.
Oh, man.
But I remember her telling me about her home birth and like kind of whispering about not doing vaccines. And I was like, this girl crazy. You know what I mean? Like, this girl's crazy. But also I'm like, but I'm listening. Because like, I just refused the flu vaccine. And I'm not really into vaccines.
Yeah.
And just parenting, you know, it just kind of takes you on a while. I feel like that's why I love birth. I love supporting women because like that's when we open up to like change.
Totally.
Right? It's like
totally.
I can abuse my body all day long, but I have to be healthy for them.
Yes.
And so we change things and we start researching. And that's why I love being around pregnant women and just watching like that unfold. And the intuition unfold. Like it's such a beautiful time to check in with your intuition because it's so strong. If it's allowed to be strong. And so all people need is just that like reassuring voice. Like, well, what do you think? Like, you're calling me, so I know what you think. You know what I mean? Like, when you called me, I'm like...
that's what you would say to me. And I'm like, no, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm like, whenever friends call me about an issue, I'm like, the fact that you called me and not somebody who's medically based means that you know your baby's fine. And you just want me to say that. You want me to agree. And I do agree, because if you think your baby's fine, I think your baby's fine.
Yeah, and it's scary. That's not exactly encouraged. Like, just intuition in general, I don't feel like is encouraged, but especially within the medical system. And it's scary, right? Because you care so much. You don't want your intuition to just be wrong or be like, what if I'm just being like, well, whatever, like flippant with it and something is not right. But you are right that there is an element of trusting, like, no, I don't think I would be flippant because I care so much. I think it would be more of a knowing if something wasn't right. But you're right. I was telling my sister this the other day. I'm like, Shayna, it is not, like, having a baby is not something that you can even... You can't describe it because you know what it's like to love people. It's not that you've never loved people. It's that growing a part of yourself that's not you in you and then birthing them out. And then it's a person, like from zero to that, it just changes you in completely like ways that are not describable. You can't describe it till you do it. So you love watching that journey.
I love watching that journey. And I love watching that journey outside the medical system. Because in the medical system, I've learned a lot since I've stepped out, right? And so we'll just wrap up like my career. So I worked in Portland, Oregon for a while, and then that hospital system had some hospitals down in California, and I could make double. And I'm like, I could use double the money right now.
Okay.
I do crazy things in my pregnancy. So it's like Everett, I bought a duplex and started renovating it.
That's
Eloise,
so funny.
I moved into an RV. Eldon, I bought a farm. Ryan, Eva, I left Ryan. Like literally, I do huge, crazy things when I'm pregnant. But that's part of it. Is like you're so connected to source and you're so open. Like I'm so aware of what I need in those moments. So I moved into an RV with Eloise, and I'm like, well, I live in an RV. Let's go down to Northern California, make double the money, and start saving for this farm that I want. And I stepped onto that unit, and it was like I stepped into a third world country. Like,
what do you mean by that?
All of the supplies were junk. The food was junk. The unit is like brand new, and it's like falling apart. There's not enough rooms. We had people having babies in the hallway. Like hallway. I'm like, where have I gone? Like, this is not how birth is supposed to be. You know, everyone is crazy anxious. Basically, all the nurses that work there have worked there since nursing school, so they don't know any different. And I saw things there that like horrified me, honestly. Horrified me. The way, even like the way they count in the operating room. I'm like, this is dangerous. Like, you guys are doing things that are unsafe. And so like I would call things out, and that's who I am. Like, if I see something unsafe, I'm not just gonna sit back and be like, that's not safe. I called out. And so I made a lot of change in that unit, just calling things out and bringing better practices. I remember this one resident. First off, if you're going to have a baby in the hospital, refuse the resident. I mean, meet the resident and see if they're nice.
What is the resident?
They're like a baby doctor. So like they'll come in and they'll introduce themselves as a resident doctor. And so all your mind hears is doctor. But if it's July, they've been a doctor for literally 3 minutes and they're fresh out of medical school. Yeah. And they'll do your whole care. You'll have no idea that they're like, you know, a student, which is fine. So students need to learn. That's okay.
Oh, the resident, you mean like, gotcha, a resident, they're just training,
they're
basically.
Training, yeah.
Gotcha,
they're learning how to be a doctor.
Yeah.
But this resident was placing a Foley balloon, which is like an induction method.
Yeah.
And I've seen hundreds of them placed, and I've never seen a woman bleed, never once. And the table is like dripping in blood. And I'm like, yes, exactly. I'm like, what? I'm like, we go outside the room, like, what happened? What went wrong? Like, I've never seen that much blood with a displacement. And he goes, oh, that's normal. They all bleed.
Oh my
gosh. Like, no, it's not normal. They don't all bleed. But a lot of residents, because they're fresh out of nursing school, and we have like this, we're losing the humanity in our society. You feel that where it's like people don't realize that we're people anymore.
Yeah.
And the residents are just trying to gain skills. They forget they're taking care of a person, and they're just trying to gain skills. And it happens a lot in teaching hospitals where like you feel like a number, and moms will say that, like, I just felt like a number. I'm like, I'm sorry, but you were just a number. We literally called you room number 3 the entire stay. Yeah. You don't want that.
So I want to tell you about my absolute favorite chips, specifically because I love nachos. Nachos is like a meal in our rotation every single week, anywhere from like 1 or 2 times a week, I'd say, we have nachos. Now, we don't just have any nachos, we have nachos using masa chips. If you've never heard of masa chips, they are amazing because they are just very simple, organic ingredients. It's literally organic, non-GMO corn. They fry their chips in beef tallow, which is amazing. And then they use sea salt and actually natural flavors, like from the plants and the flavors that they're doing. So like their lime chips is actually lime. Their habanero pepper is using habanero peppers, if that's how you say it. They're incredible. Not only do they taste great, but like I said, for nachos and dipping, they're the best because they never get soggy. They never sag down. So I also use those chips in chili, and I love that too because same thing, when I crumble them on the chili, they don't get soggy, they don't get soft. They stay nice and crunchy in the chili for like a long period of time because they are just so sturdy and delicious. So if you want to try out masa chips, you can use my code NikkiPhilippi and you will get 20% off of your first purchase. Once again, it's just my name, Nikki Philippi, and happy nacho making.
It's been a journey, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. That job was very unsatisfying to me.
Yes, you helped change things.
I tried to help change things, and that hospital had like the highest infection rate of all the hospitals in Northern California.
Oh my gosh.
And so I remember my first patient, she spikes a fever, and like, moms spike fevers, especially epidurals. A side effect of an epidural is a fever.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, I see fevers in labor. That's not a big deal. And I do the things I do to get the fever to come down, and I go back in and it's like 102.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh, like she's actually really sick. So I go to the doctor, the resident doctor, and I, here's my fever, here's what I've done. And he goes, give her a dose of Tylenol and check it in 45 minutes. And I check it in 45 minutes, it's 102.5. And I go back in and I'm like, she doesn't seem sick, right? Like if she has choreo, like do we have infections in labor? Yes, that's a thing. It's called choreo. Mom usually has like she feels sick. She feels like she has the flu.
Okay.
And usually there'll be a stink, like a smell to it because it's like it infected, all the fluid has got infected.
Okay.
She had none of that. I'm like, I don't think that she's actually sick. And the nurse that's working with me goes, oh, yeah, everyone here gets everyone here gets infected. Just hang the antibiotics, the first sign of fever, you'll never be able to get the fever down. And I was like, what do you mean? And it was true. I hung more antibiotics at that hospital than I have in my entire career. So I'd been a nurse for 6 years at that point. 7 years. 8 years. I don't even know.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere. I'd worked at that hospital for 2 years. So yeah, I had been a nurse for 8 years. I hung more antibiotics in that 2 years there than in my whole career 8 years before. And don't you wish you knew that? Like, if you're going to have a baby in the hospital, you have the right to know that.
Yeah.
You have the right to know that your hospital you're going to has a higher C-section rate, has a high infection rate, has a high NICU transfer rate, because that area has like 10 hospitals. And those other hospitals aren't experiencing the same thing.
Okay,
right?
that's such a
so
trip. My brain is just like, what the heck is it? What is it?
Yeah. And they've done like studies. That hospital keeps doing studies because they can't figure out why the infection rate is so high.
Oh, that is so creepy.
I mean? And so I know why the infection rate. I'm like, I have an idea. They won't listen to it. Quit breaking people's bags of water, And that's the thing in a hospital.
So you think it's the procedures of that hospital?
I mean, obviously there's a bacteria in that hospital they can't get rid of, right? Like,
oh God, that's
this
so
isn't
creepy.
Normal. It's a hospital. Where do people go to die?
Yeah,
Where do people go when they're sick? Like, do you really want to have your baby where people go to die? Do you really want to wear a gown that someone died in last week?
Yeah.
Like, you have no idea.
That's something I was so particular about in terms of thinking about home birth. I was like, I want my baby to be born. This sounds so weird, but it's like I want them to be born into my bacteria.
Yes.
Like they're
It's so
already
important.
like immune to it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And it's also the same reason I never did cervical checks, because even though it's like, oh, we have gloves, I'm like, okay, but the gloves are in the air, and like then suddenly we're going in. It just felt like, just stay out of my vag.
Yeah.
Just let them bake and just let it be. So
the
that's
cervix
just
isn't a crystal ball. Like the cervix can change. Like I'm a good example of that. I stay like 1 to 2 because I check myself, which is stupid. Don't do that. Don't midwife yourself if you're having a home birth. Like,
okay, I think I did when I was giving birth.
Yeah.
But I think I why is it bad?
Well, for me, I was like trying to assess my own self in my labor.
Oh,
so I was
gotcha.
too much in my head.
Okay.
Which wasn't allowing me to flow in my labor. But like I stay like 1 to 2 until like I'm basically transition. And so like the cervix says nothing. I'd go to the hospital. They'd be like, "You're 2," and they would send me home. Like they didn't, but
Yeah.
if I'd gone to the hospital. And so I'm like, yeah, keep out. But so most hospitals across the country want to break the bag of waters as soon as possible.
Okay.
Which is not physiologic, right? Are you going to wake up? In the hospital, they want to break your bag of waters as quickly as possible. There was a study done that shows that it saves 2 hours, potentially at max, 2 hours off your labor. Okay? So they sell it to women as like, oh, it's going to speed up your labor. It's going to make things so much faster. You'll have your baby soon. But I think if a mom knew that it was at the max, 2 hours, and it's more painful and it sets her up for the risk of infection, she probably would say no.
Yeah.
Right? And so that was my thing. I'm like, well, we have high infection rates. We should not break bags of water. We should let them break naturally. No, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't even entertain the idea. I'm like, there's no risk of infection until the bag of water is broken. So we could completely get rid of this infection rate if we would just stop this procedure.
Wow. Yeah. Well, okay, backing up, I guess while you're adjusting her, I can chime in with my little story too.
Yeah.
When I checked myself in labor, I didn't even know what I was feeling. Like, I don't know. It's like, oh, the sizes. I was just trying to see if I could feel a head coming through. And I felt nothing. And then all of a sudden, I felt the head coming through. It was like, oh my gosh. Actually, what I felt was my water break. It was like, I'm like, I don't feel anything. And then it went, and I was like, oh, my water just broke. It was the kind of the coolest, craziest thing to experience. Like, I didn't break my bag last. Like, it didn't break till I was going, and I'm pretty sure my midwife was like, "Can I pop this now? Like, it's bulging," type of thing. And then we popped it. But it was really cool to be able to feel that. But I wasn't like, I don't know what I'm feeling for, so it's not the same thing of like being in my head.
And it's like, a lot of my stories are like pieced together because it's like, I get, like I said, the seed here, and then later on in my life, I'm like, oh, it starts to grow.
Yeah.
And so at mom's dinner here, I was talking to a mom, and she was talking about how after her birth, she got C. diff, and they had given her clindamycin.
C. diff.
C. diff is like explosive diarrhea. Like, imagine the worst stomach virus you've ever had times a million.
Oh, gosh.
Explosive diarrhea.
Oh,
You
gosh.
can't, like water just rushing out of you, and it's highly contagious. And so, like, you have to be on precautions. Alcohol sanitizers don't kill it. You have to wash your hands. So she's just had a brand new baby, and they gave her clindamycin. And guess what a side effect of clindamycin is? C. diff.
Oh.
They didn't tell her.
Oh, my
I didn't even know it as a nurse until I talked to her. I looked it up after I talked to her. A high risk of C. diff. So she has a newborn baby, and she's literally just like pouring liquid out her butt.
Oh.
You know what I mean? So sick, so horrible, so traumatic. And then she had gut issues for 10 years.
Oh,
and
my
it wasn't
gosh.
until she went and saw a naturopathic doctor who was like, oh my gosh, the reason you have gut issues is because your gut never healed from the C. diff. And so that dose of antibiotics, which I could have hung, I didn't because I wasn't her nurse, but I could have hung that dose of antibiotics, affected her for 10 years. It's not just that one day. And so like, it's an important thing that we need to talk about because we're hanging antibiotics like it's candy in the hospital.
That's exactly it.
And it has lifetime effects on babies and on moms.
Yes. I literally spoke to someone yesterday who said that they were on antibiotics about 15 years ago. And she said, yeah, I mean, she was kind of throwing the statement nonchalantly, but she's like, oh yeah, it ruined my life.
Yes.
Like, it's serious.
And it needs to be a conversation. And so I'm like, this is a big deal. Like having a high infection rate in a hospital is a big deal.
Yeah.
And they knew it was a big deal, but they weren't willing to do the things that would actually just stop the infection rate.
Oh my gosh,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so at that hospital, well, like, at birth, like I was a good nurse. I don't like me to like pat myself on the shoulder or anything, but like I love mothers. And I would take care of my moms like they were my friend. And like you really, like my patients would say that. Like I felt like I was being taken care of by a family member
that's
today.
also very on brand for you. It's not surprising. It's not surprising.
I went above and beyond. Like I took really good care of my patients. And I felt so unsatisfied there because, we'd have 2 patients, like there just wasn't time to take care of people. And so, I'm at a birth and she's about to have the baby and dad's there and he's trying to take pictures and he's fussing and I'm like, give me your camera. And that's what I do. I take dad's camera because I'm like, so many memories are lost where dad's trying to catch pictures of the baby.
Yes.
I'm like, you're supposed to be enjoying this moment. So give me your camera. I'm gonna take pictures for you.
Yeah.
And I'm taking pictures and I look at the midwife and I'm like, in my next life, I'm gonna be a doula birth photographer. And I went home that night and I was like, how do I become a doula, right? Like I started researching because obviously I need something different.
Yeah.
What I really realized at that hospital was that, because that hospital was the worst of all the ones I worked at.
Yeah.
People who had birth plans just didn't come to that hospital because they knew they wouldn't get what they wanted there. Like we had that reputation in the community. And I realized there that in 8 hours of my shift, it wasn't enough time to help a family really understand what it was going to take to get a natural birth in the hospital.
Yeah.
It just wasn't enough time. I needed to meet these moms before they came to the hospital so they were ready for the fight that was up against, that they were going to be up against.
Yeah.
And so I researching researching doula programs, and I find Wapio, who's now my boss.
Yeah.
And like, fate would have it, like my vacation, everything just lined up for me to take her program in Northern California.
Wow.
And I had known something was missing, right? So like my 2 babies were born all natural in the hospital. They've never had vaccines, something I did never talk about at the hospital, right? I didn't share that. I'd like tiptoe around things because you just can't have those conversations with the nurses because they're just not ready for it.
Yeah.
And so I sit down at Wapio's feet for this 4-day doula course, and my mind is blown the whole time. And I'm like, we're not missing birth a little bit. I'm like, we've missed it all.
Oh my
You know what I mean?
gosh.
Like the transformation. She looks at me and she goes, Jess, what would you say if a patient came in and wanted a physiologic birth? And like when you're on the spot and you should know the answer because you've been a labor and delivery nurse for like 9 years and you have no idea what the answer is. And I'm just like staring at her with like my giant eyes. I'm like,
I don't
know. I had never heard the word physiologic birth.
Wow.
I'm the nurse who takes like all the patients who have birth plans and the VBACs and all of that. And I don't know what a physiologic birth is because we're not taught physiologic. We're taught pathologic in the hospital.
Yeah.
So I take her course and I'm like, everyone needs to know this, And we actually left on a trip. So like we flew out of there to Florida, rented a camper van and camper van our way back to California, which was a very fun trip. And I'm meeting friends along the way and I'm telling them the news. Like it's amazing. And it's,
I've got this new life path.
I have we've missed it. We've missed it, you guys. Wow. And it's January 2020. It's like the new year. And I'm like, that's it. You know what? I am not going to like dim my light anymore. I'm going to shine my light. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Like, I'm not going to hide things anymore. And I had like made this like this very loud call of like, I'm not going to dim who I am anymore to make other people comfortable. Because I've done that my whole life. You know what I mean? Like, I've always tried to fit in, right? Versus belong. Don't kick the microphone.
It's so hard. Flip it back in.
Oh,
yeah, there you go.
There. You're so cute. And so I'm like, I'm not going to try and fit in the hospital anymore. I never fit in anyways. It's like you would try to fit in, but like,
totally,
I have my mason jar with a green smoothie and I'm like eating healthy and they're all like, what is she? I have this like lunch. It's like this big. Like, what did she bring today?
Yeah.
Salads and ridiculousness.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to shine my light. That lasted 3 months in the hospital. I got back at the end of January. I was asked to leave the hospital the middle of March.
Okay, so this is where we get into your lawsuit.
Yes.
Because you believe, based on what I remember you telling me, that the reason that you ended up getting fired was actually a bunch of other things kind of piling up from you not dimming your light, and then one thing kind of being, hi, you're just staring at me, and then one thing being the tipping point. Yeah. So do you want to tell what happened at that tipping point?
Yeah, and so like I said, how do I even explain? I feel like you understand though. It's like, in those type of situations, in school, on the unit, I was always well liked, but I never like fit in. I never belonged there. You know what I mean? It's like my nurses liked me. Did they think I was insane? Absolutely. But they liked me. And so I was always liked. My manager liked me. She had made me like chair of this breastfeeding committee. And again, like, let's make change for breastfeeding. I'm like, well, here's my ideas. Toots. Here's my ideas. And they're like, well, we can't do that. Because I'm like, well, we need more time for moms to be able to breastfeed. Like, they're talking about moving moms over to postpartum in an hour. I'm like, you can't expect me to give all the baby meds, weigh the baby, allow for bonding, allow for breastfeeding, get mom up to the bathroom and do 10 things in 60 minutes and expect for breastfeeding to be good. You know what I mean?
No,
And so like, well, we need more time. Well, no, you can't have more time. I'm like, the only way to set these moms up for success is cracking me up.
If you hear toots,
it's not me. Not today. And so, so I take the doula program, and Wapio talks a lot about the dad being the guardian.
Which I love that.
Yes, they come down as the guardian angel, and I'm like, even that at her program when she's like, who holds the charge of the birth? I was like, well, obviously mom. And she's like, no, dad. And I'm like, how dare you? You know what I mean? Like, I felt like fighting a little bit. I'm like, how dare you say that dad holds the charge? And then she explained it.
And break it down and you were like, oh my God.
Yes. Like, of course the dad is the guardian.
Yes.
Like men are on this earth to protect and provide for us, right?
Yes.
And they're supposed to do it at the birth too.
And it takes two to make a baby.
And they love that role. Yes. Like when I started telling dads, I'm like, you want to know what your job is? They're like, yes, what's my job? You know what I mean? I'm like, I know your job now.
Oh.
Like, here's what you do. And I just started like really bringing dads into my, for like 2 months that I was able to work. So, the birth was so good. So, I'm shining my light. I am getting louder, and I've learned lessons from each of my births too, which I like. So Eloise gave me my voice, because before I had Eloise, before I carried her, I just stuffed it all down. I had this wall, right? And so like I was this very timid, very like you wouldn't even believe it, this very kind of quiet, shy person unless you knew me. And Eloise helped me find my voice. And Eloise has her voice, you know, she's never going to be silenced. And so I felt like that wall of my voice broke down in that pregnancy.
Wow.
And each kid has given me something beautiful, which I just think like...
I mean, I think that every mom, I think that's the story of every baby, right? It's like you learn something massive through the pregnancy and the delivery and then the baby in and of themselves.
Yeah,
that's
and they
amazing.
just gift something that would have taken you a lifetime. They would have taken me on my own a lifetime to find my voice.
Which is maybe partially why it's so intense, the process of having a baby.
It is, because
like
you're
so
changing.
Much.
You're completely transformation in like a day.
Uh-huh.
And so... go back to work, things are fine. I'm sharing some stuff about like the breastfeeding crawl and not being so involved. Everyone's taking it very well. And then my friend Alicia, with Intentional Birth, she calls me and she goes, I have this mom. We don't normally go to Santa Clara, but are you working today? I'm like, I am working today. Can I bring this mom in? And I'm like, well, let me see if I can take care of her.
Wow.
So I asked my manager, I'm like, hey, can I switch assignments? I have a friend bringing a mom in. They want me to be their nurse. Oh, sure, not a problem.
Okay.
And this mom had worked so hard. So she had an emergency C-section, her first baby, super, super traumatic. And she felt like it was unnecessary. And so she was planning a home birth this time. Okay. And she had been at home for days, bag of water broken for days, stuck. And then finally she got to 9 centimeters and she just stopped. Her labor just halted, you know? And so she came to the hospital. And really what she was coming to the hospital for was some Pitocin to get labor going again. And she wanted an epidural. And so she comes in, we do the check-in and we get her all settled in. And she goes, okay, I want my epidural. I'm like, are you sure? And she goes, well, do you think I need an epidural? I'm like, well, why don't we try nitrous first? And she goes, okay. And so she does nitrous. And I go to hang the Pitocin, and Dad goes, just so you know, I want to know every time you turn it up and how much you're turning it up by. And I'm like, oh, like I'd never had a family really care about how I run Pitocin, which is, Pitocin is the drug we give to get contractions going again. It's like an induction.
Yeah.
And so I get it hanging, and I only had it up to 1. So usually we start at 2, and we go up by 2 every 30 minutes.
Okay.
I gave her 1 milli-unit of Pitocin. So I gave her like a baby dose. All she needed was like this little nudge, and she was back into active labor. And she was doing amazing. So like the epidural idea just went out the window. Like she didn't need it. She was using nitrous. She was on the edge of the bed. She had her team there. And things were fine. And so, you know, I have this long birth plan. I bring the midwife in to review the birth plan. And Wapio again talks about the energy we can bring into a birth, which is something I had never thought about. But we can bring the energy of a hemorrhage into a birth. We can bring the energy of anxiety and fear into a birth. And that midwife comes in and she looks at the birth plan. And she goes, this is all well and fine. But if we're in an emergency, when your wife bleeds and we are in an emergency, I'm not going to ask permission to give drugs to save your wife's life. And he goes, you're going to take the time to ask me before you give my wife anything. You know what I mean? He just stood his ground. Like, of course he wants to know what's going to go into his wife.
Yeah.
He has the right. We have that right. And so like she leaves the room and the room is just like solemn, you know what I mean? Like there's just like this energy of like,
I can't believe this just happened.
Well, it's like when you hemorrhage. It wasn't like if you hemorrhage. When you hemorrhage, I'm going to do this. And so I've never done this in a birth before, but I just like gathered up the energy and I'm like, are you having a hemorrhage? I'm having a hemorrhage, and I threw it out the window.
Wow.
And like it cleared the energy. My hospital always sent me to lunch. Like all my stories are like, and then I got sent to lunch. Like we're in the flow and things are going really good. And then like they know somehow they're like, you have to go to lunch now. And I'm like, I don't want to go to lunch. So like I hear her pushing a tiny bit. I'm like, she's not had a vaginal birth before. She's going to push for a while. And so I tell the nurse, like, she's pushing a tiny bit. Make sure the baby stays on the monitor. I'll be back before it's like actual go time.
Okay.
So I come back in and like, she's like starting to push and she wants to have a baby. So I call the midwife in. And the midwife wants to check her cervix. And they're like, no, you can't check my cervix. And the midwife's like, okay, fine. You know, and we could see a little bit of baby at that time. And so it wasn't a big deal. Okay. And Dad is down there and he's doing warm compress. He's just supporting his partner. She's like up over the bed. And the midwife gets all dressed up and she goes in to support the perineum. And the dad swats her hand away and says, no. And she goes, what? And she goes, I'm catching my baby. And I love this story because I didn't know he was going to catch the baby. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing with the hospital, they think I was like in cahoots with the family. I had planned this and I loved it. I didn't plan it.
Yeah.
I found out at that moment that he was going to catch his baby and I was like, let's do it. Hell yeah, I'll catch your baby. And the midwife's like, you can't catch your own baby. And he goes, I'm catching my baby. Aww. And she just starts spitting off like all the risks if it catches your own baby. What? Your baby could, you know, cord could be wrapped around the neck, all these things. And he's like ignoring her. And so then she throws off her gloves. She goes, this is out of my scope. Call in the doctor. And so she marches out like angry. And the doctor comes in and she goes, well, I guess I'm going to watch this unassisted delivery, and just like folds her hand and scoots back and then starts going over all the risks too. You could rip to your anus. Your baby could die. Like fear. You know what Dad does?
What?
He starts to pray. And they're Indian. So he starts to do this prayer chant. And he's like there with his warm compress and he's just chanting this beautiful chant, this prayer of love over his family. And it creates this bubble, like this energetic bubble where nothing can get into mom. She doesn't hear a single thing they're saying, right? Because he's praying over them and he's guarding that space.
Wow.
It was so beautiful. I watched him energetically, which sounds crazy, I know, and like a lot of what I saw sounds crazy.
I love it.
But I watched him become the guardian of his family in that moment.
Wow.
Like I watched him put on the armor as he stood up for his family.
Wow.
And it was a hard situation to stand up for his family because like literally you have this doctor just going, and this could go wrong, and this could go wrong, and this could go wrong. And then she says, and there could be a cord around the neck. And like right when she says that, baby's head comes out and there's a cord around the neck. And so she goes to like try and like pull the cord off, and he goes, no, I'm gonna do it. And he's fumbling around. And I go, you know, let her help you. You're here to have help. Let her help you get the cord down. A cord is not an emergency.
We
make this huge big deal about it. It happens in a third of births, and we freak out about it in the hospital, but it's not an emergency.
Yeah. Which this is something Dan would talk about when I was pregnant. He was like, if there's a cord, then
there's
just
a cord.
unwrap the cord. And
It's
he would
not-
watch videos about this, and he's like, that's what I'll do, you know?
It's actually a safety mechanism, so the cord doesn't fall out.
Wow.
You would rather have the cord around the neck than hanging out because then that's a medical emergency.
Yeah.
You know?
Interesting.
I could go on about cords forever too.
Yeah.
Where was I? So
sorry. So she says, let her. You say, let her help you.
Let her help you. And so he does, and they remove the cord together. And then she's like, you know, she's going on and on about the baby's like shoulder dystocia and this and that. Baby comes out, and baby's just like limp, like just comes into his arms and is like, whoa, that was a wild ride. It's just like laying there. And the baby nurse was so good because, you know, they had a lot of spiritual stuff that they wanted for their birth. And one of them was they didn't want anyone talking to the baby. They didn't want anyone touching the baby.
Interesting. Okay.
And the baby nurse actually respected that, even though this baby looked very floppy.
Wow.
And so we all kind of went around him and like, okay, call life into your baby. Rub your baby's back, talk to him. And he goes, you're so strong, just like your mom. And the baby just beams into her life.
Oh my gosh.
Takes this huge breath. And I'm weeping, right? Like I'm just
my
weeping. I'm like,
gosh.
it's like this beautiful scene. And I look over the doctor and she's like this. And I'm like, she missed it. She missed this birth, the most powerful birth I've ever seen in the hospital.
Wow.
And I was the only one in the room to see it.
Wow.
She missed it. So, you know, I get her all tucked in and they're like, we want to go home. I'm like, duh, you want to go home? You're going to have a home birth. Let's get you home. They refuse help. The dad delivers the placenta. Like he's so involved. He wants to do it all. He wants to make sure that like his wife is not touched. You know what I mean? And I go up to the desk and the midwife is crying. She's saying that she's been assaulted. The doctor is saying,
what?
Yes, the doctor is freaking out. They're writing up policies. Everyone's freaking out, right? And I go, time out. Does my opinion, I was the nurse. I was the primary nurse. Do I get to say what goes on this report? And they're like, we'll look at your charting. And I look at the midwife and I'm like, you were not assaulted. He had a washcloth like this, literally 4 inches. It's a washcloth. And he swatted your hand away because you went in to touch her vagina without consent.
There you go.
That's sexual assault.
There it is.
And I said sexual assault. And it was like I pulled a gun on that unit.
I was just
like,
yeah.
Like the energy went like this. And then like, it was horrible. The doctor was saying, well, in an emergency, they wouldn't have let us help. And I'm like, you did help. You helped take the cord down. I most certainly did not. I'm like, 10 minutes ago, you helped take the cord down. No, I didn't. I'm like, you didn't see it. She wasn't even there. She wasn't even present.
Wow.
You know? And so then my assistant manager said, so like, what's the name of the midwife and the doula that's in that room? I'm like, go in and ask yourself. And he goes, if you don't tell me right now, I'll have you walked out in insubordination. And I know that you're the primary breadwinner for your family. I wouldn't want to do that to your children.
Oh.
Yeah. And I'm a crier, okay? I cry. I'm surprised I haven't cried today. I was like, I'm probably going to cry on her podcast.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just like, it just hits you, right? I just start crying and like, what do I am. My husband was a stay-at-home dad. I'm the only person that makes money. And so I still feel a little guilt for this. I gave him the names of the midwife and the doula. They were in the room. He would have walked in and got them himself.
He would have found out anyways.
It wouldn't have mattered, but it would have felt good to be like, no, walk me out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like gangster
right. Yes,
style,
exactly.
but I didn't. And it was so sad. Like I literally cried the rest of my shift. The shift was over. That happened. That whole thing happened in front of 2 shifts. And so like, 40 nurses saw this go down where they threatened me with insubordination, which I just think is wrong.
Wow.
I go back and I'm trying to get her out the door, and my manager comes over and she says, because I said something about like they didn't do anything wrong. They have the right to refuse service. Like they didn't do anything wrong. And she goes, when a family comes into the hospital and they sign away their rights.
I can't.
Yeah. My manager of the unit said that. Okay.
Even the term insubordination is so
it was
creepy.
so ugly. And so, I get all my charting done. I'm weeping. I keep trying to like splash water in my face, like trying to get get my composure. But I was like literally just verbally attacked by my manager in front of others. And like, it was horrible. And so I go home that night and I have to come back to work the next day. And I print off the law of informed consent for my manager. Like the law is you have the right to refuse anything you want in the hospital. And I give it to her and she goes, oh yeah, I know. Like I was wrong. I'm like, you were wrong. But that's what you believe.
Yes, you boldly stated that they're signing
boldly
away
that.
their rights when they come in.
And that was kind of the undertone of my entire, so that birth I got in trouble. Like, they did a discovery meeting. And basically the discovery meeting, they were trying to like claim that I was paid by the family. Yeah, so they're like, did you know this family before this meeting? Did you do this, did this? Like, I'm like, no, like, I take good care of my patients. I take care of all my patients. Well, why did they come to this hospital? And you knew the doula, and the doula pay you, and like all of this. What's the word? They have this whole policy of conflict of interest, and I'm like, I'm allowed to take care of people I know. I'm allowed to take care of people I love. It's not conflict of interest. And so,
also, even if you had been paid, I don't understand. You were only doing what they wanted. And
if I had been paid separate by the family, it would have been, because I would have been like being paid by both. It would have been, I would have crossed the line.
But to my mind, from like a moral, it's like, what were you doing wrong? But supporting their interests when the law exists that they are able to do what they want. Anyway,
to get good
it's
care.
Not like you were doing. That's so weird.
It's
to
sad
me.
that someone would have to pay to get good care.
Yeah,
that they think like, oh, they got what they wanted. They must have paid you. Like that's the hospital's mindset.
Yikes.
That's wild. I never thought of that. I'm like, that's wild. And so I'm telling everybody about the birth. I'm back at work and I'm like, you guys won't believe what I saw. It's some of the most beautiful birth I've ever seen in my entire career. And I'm just gushing about it. Wow. And the midwife won't look at me. The doctor's mad. And it was like 3 days in. What did I say? Oh, I had like the best day at work. I had this like just one of those days where it was just like in the flow, and I was taking care of antepartum patients. COVID is just starting to hit, right? It's March 2020. Things are getting weird. We've just banned visitors for all of our antepartum patients. So antepartum means that you have some kind of high risk thing in your pregnancy, and the hospital's now your home for the rest of your pregnancy.
Oh my gosh.
And now COVID's hit. You're stuck in this tiny ugly room, and you can't have visitors. Right?
Oh,
horrible.
my gosh.
As if it's not depressing enough to be away from your family, to be worried about your baby.
I was just gonna say, oh my.
And I go into my room and my patient is just dressed up so beautiful. I'm like, well, you look wonderful today. What's up? She's like, today's my birthday. And I'm like, my birthday's tomorrow. I love my birthday. I gush about it all the time. Like, it's your birthday and you're stuck here and no one can visit you. Oh. This is horrible. And so I start planning her birthday party, right? And I'm like gathering people around. I get some ice cream. I put some candles on my phone. And I bring a whole group of people and we sing happy birthday to her. And I'm like, I felt like I made a difference, right? Like I brought a little sunshine to her day. Another manager from postpartum, she sees me, she goes, I just love seeing you on the unit, Jess. Like, your smile just makes me so happy. And I'm like, thank you, that feels so good. Another doctor was like, you go above and beyond for your patients, and I really appreciate that. And I'm like, if you could tell my manager that, like, they're kind of mad at me right now, so if you could just, like, go and say that to them, I'd appreciate that. That afternoon, like, literally, it was a good last day of work, right? Like, my manager comes to the desk, she goes, I need to talk to you in my office. I'm like, do I need the union? No, you don't need the union, just come into my office. I go in her office because I'm an idiot. She goes, I want your badge. You're on admin leave. You can't come back to work. You can't come to the hospital at all unless you're seeking medical care. We need your badge. We'll be paying you while you're gone. We don't know how long until. We're investigating you.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is March 2020. COVID's like full bore craziness, right? Everyone's freaking out. I live in an RV and I'm being paid not to be at the hospital. Peace out, California.
Yeah,
like,
see ya.
I'm like, I'm going to the free states. So we went visit my mom and then we traveled all the free states. What's crazy is that's how we found Idaho. That's how we found home. That's how I found my property. Like,
that's so
isn't that wild? Like all these
Yes.
things, I'm like, I couldn't have planned that myself.
No.
You know what I mean? I got a 6-month paid vacation. And it was horrible because I'd be on call. Like, they're like, if you miss your call, this will happen. Like, you can't talk about it. You can't talk about the birth. You can't talk about what's going on. You can't share anything.
Wow.
And so and I had like all this anxiety about it. And so like literally I just like cut off all my work friends and I didn't tell. They're like, what happened? I'm like, I can't talk about it. I don't trust anyone now. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are back for the next ad in my car, and that is Bioptimizers. I've talked about Bioptimizers quite a bit. I legit am obsessed with their magnesium. It's kind of low-key changed my life, and I take it every single day. And I don't really take many supplements right now. Specifically when I was pregnant with my first, I used to have restless leg syndrome, and it was horrible. If you've struggled with it, you know. And when I was pregnant this last time around, I would start to struggle with it, but as long as I took my Bioptimizers magnesium, it would go away. That stuff is amazing, and I think it's because their magnesium actually has 7 different types of magnesium. So because of that, you are more likely to be able to absorb and utilize the magnesium because the different types are used for different things in your body. It helps with deep sleep. Like I said, it helps with muscle cramps. Magnesium helps with so many things, and the Bioptimizers magnesium, like I said, has 7 different types of magnesium. There's no other magnesium like that as far as I know on the market. They have a product called Sleep Breakthrough that Logan takes like a little mini scoop of at night. It's not technically a product made for kids, so I give him like a 1/4 of the dosing amount for him at night, and he loves it. I think it helps him sleep deeper and fall asleep faster, and all of their ingredients are super high quality. I just really recommend them. So if you want to check out Bioptimizers and you want to use my discount code, I'd be very grateful. It is NikkiP10 for 10% off. Once again, that is NikkiP10, and I think you're going to love their stuff.
I felt very paranoid. It was horrible. I felt so much anxiety and so much paranoia that I literally just like cut all those people off my life.
Well, because you were doing what you thought was right in the first place.
I
and
was.
it got you
I
in
didn't
trouble.
do anything wrong.
So it's like, how do I
Yes.
even navigate this now?
In that birth, all I did was keep the baby on the monitor. That's my job. Is I made sure baby and mom were safe. I did my job. And that baby, oh my gosh, her name means wisdom.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh girl, she was born at the hospital for me. I know that. Like that girl did not need to be born at the hospital.
Wow.
She did that so I could see that birth. And
Wow.
her heartbeat was perfect the entire time, even when mom was pushing. Like she did not give them a reason to have any. I know, like, because usually there's dips at the end.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
there's something comes up. It's hard being born.
Yeah.
No, she
It's
knew.
hard being
She
born.
knew that if she had a single dip, that they were going to use that as an excuse for a C-section, and she kept her heart rate perfect the entire time.
Wow, that's
Like,
incredible.
such a good baby. Yeah. And so, then I end up in North Idaho, and I walk into Pilgrim's, and there's raw milk at the Pilgrim's grocery store, and I'm like, there's raw milk in the grocery store. That's weird. And then I'm at Garnet Cafe, and I'm having a conversation. We're talking about vaccines and like the pending COVID vaccine. And this lady joins our conversation, and she's a nurse here, and we have this like conversation about how vaccines aren't so great. I'm like,
Like,
the first
where
time in my
am I?
life, for the first time in my life, like I just had like a nice conversation with a nurse about vaccines. I'm like, are we home? I'm like, Ryan, I think we might be home. Like,
Incredible.
you know what I mean? And so we started looking at properties while we were here. Like, we're here on vacation. We're just like traveling around. We had gone to, North Dakota and South Dakota, Montana, everywhere that you didn't have to wear a mask.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And we got kicked out of an RV park for not wearing a mask, walking our dogs in Colorado. Yeah.
Oh
like,
my gosh.
Really, RV life wasn't fun anymore. COVID made, we wanted to see all the national parks. National parks, the bookstores are closed. You have to wear masks. People are yelling at us on paths. Like, COVID stole the joy.
On paths.
Like, we're out in nature. Like, I would find masks, like, that was horrible. Like, you're out in the middle of nowhere, you see masks all over the ground. You're like, this is sad.
No,
like,
I feel like I
bad.
keep using the word creepy, but like so much
creepy.
creepiness.
Yeah. And so I look at my property now where we live. I wanted to see it, and the realtor wouldn't let us. And I'm like, it was pending. I'm like, it's pending, but it's my property. He goes, no, it's going to happen. The offer is a good offer. It's going to go through. I'm like, okay. And I post on social media. Like I'd been off social media because I was like convinced that my coworkers were against me. I was very paranoid. And I'm like, if they know I'm on vacation, they're going to tell my boss, and my boss is going to call me back in. And so I post that I'm on vacation, and that next day I get a call to come back to work.
Oh my gosh!
I'm like, I knew it. And I had deleted everyone who I thought could possibly be the mole,
Yeah, yeah.
And so I go back to work, and I call about the property, and they're like, no, it's pending. It's a done deal. And I call about the property. No, it's pending. It's a done deal. And I call about the property. The offer just dropped today.
Unbelievable.
It goes back on the market tomorrow. I'm like, I want to put an offer in. He's like, you've not seen it. I'm like, no, you have to see it. He won't take an offer unless you come see it. And I had vacation starting the next day. So we literally, Ryan packed up the RV. We headed back to Idaho to go see this property.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And we come to Idaho, we see the property, and we put an offer in, and it gets accepted. Wow. And we head back to work. And on the way, we stop in like Oregon to see my family, and for Everett's birthday, we celebrate. And I come back to work, and I'm on leave again. And they didn't call me. I didn't know. So like I called. I don't know why. I don't even know how I found out I was on leave. They didn't call me. They were supposed to, and they didn't. And they're like, you're on leave again. Don't come back to work. We're going to have a discovery meeting. And I'm like, what have I done wrong? So when I came back to work, I feel like I jumped. I did jump a little bit. So the mole, I come back to work, and it can be fine. They, HR says, this is an olive branch, one that I didn't want to extend. You can come back to work. Like, welcome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Right?
Yeah, I didn't want to.
I didn't want to give this to you, but I'm
going
going to give this to you because we spent 6 months trying to find a reason to fire you. You're a really good nurse.
Wow.
There's not a reason to fire you, so welcome back.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah.
Also, we don't trust you, so now you can't go into a patient room by yourself.
Wow.
You're on a 90-day action plan. You cannot enter a room without a babysitter. And they had like all these things in my action plan. Like I couldn't say anything negative about COVID. I had to make sure there was like these wipes that we had. And I would tell patients, I'd like give the patients the wipes. I'd be like, you need to read this. It's like a super chlorhexidine. It's like a crazy antibiotic. And we wipe moms down from nipple to knee because we're basically blaming mom for our infection rate. So every mom that came in got wiped down with antibiotics to help reduce the infection rate. I'm like, the mom's not the problem.
It's unbelievable.
The hospital's the problem. I'm like, you should know that this is like hardcore and people have rashes from it. Read the package before I do it,
Wow.
And like you just need to do it. I'm like, it's informed consent.
Yes.
They get to decide if they want to do it. So it was like on my action plan to make sure that I do those wipes.
Wow.
All these like little like jabs. Make sure you're giving your vaccines. I'm like, has there been a complaint about vaccines? Is there charts? Is it in my charting that my babies don't get vaccines? I'm like, I do what mom wants.
Wow.
What I want for my family doesn't change what I do for another family, And so I go back to work and I have to have a babysitter. Like nursing students who've never done anything, they can give water, right? I can't go into a room by myself. I have to have someone there. And so I'm calling her my babysitter, and my manager comes up and he goes, you're not allowed to call it your babysitter anymore. That sounds very negative. They're your I don't even remember what they called it. I'm like, it's a babysitter.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening right now.
And finally, I'm like, is this because you are scared I'm going to share my opinions with patients? And they admitted, yes, it's because we're scared you're going to share your opinions with patients. They had made it like out to be that I'm not following policy. I'm like, I always follow policy. So I had a 1-day suspension. They made up a policy that doesn't exist that I didn't follow. So they said that when that dad caught his baby, I should have called the manager into the room. I have never in my career of 10 years called a manager into a room. I'm like, I called in the attending doctor. That's who I call into a room when things are out of control. I don't call the manager.
Okay.
The doctor could have called you in. The doctor didn't. The midwife could have called you in. The midwife didn't. The midwife went to the desk. You knew what was happening in that room, and you didn't come in. And now it's on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Horrible.
Wow.
And so I am doing everything right. I'm making sure my charting's really good. I had nurses whispering to me like, "Oh, just stay silent. It's just 90 days. Just be quiet. Just be a little bit quieter for 90 days." I'm like, I'm not going to be quiet about informed consent.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell my patients they don't have a right to say no. Like, and that's all I was doing. That's what the hospital didn't like. It's like teaching them the law of informed consent and really educating my patients. And
which says so much.
It's so sad, right?
It says so much.
So I come back to work and they're like, "You're on leave again." And I'm like, what did I do wrong? Like, I'm literally like, I called in sick, but I had a doctor's note because I was pregnant. I'm like, I had made sure I was in my lane. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, that 2 days I had to wait for that discovery meeting was like so much anxiety. Because like, you know, when you get pulled over and it's like everything you've ever done your entire life comes up. I'm sitting there like racking my brain, like, I don't know what I did wrong. And I come into the discovery meeting and they're like, asking all these questions about checking cervixes. When do you check a cervix? I'm like, well, I never check cervixes at this hospital. The residents always do it. And like, well, when would you? And all these, and the union sitting there, I'm like, I don't know why I'm here, and this doesn't feel fair. And they keep asking questions. I look at the union again, I'm like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't think I should have to answer questions until I know why I'm here. And he goes, well, that's true. You have to tell her why she's here. The union was horrible.
Oh,
the union,
my gosh.
I could go on about the union too. He encouraged me to take like a bad deal. He's like, yeah, but you're pregnant and you need the insurance. And I'm like, you're supposed to be on my side. Not on the hospital side, but he was never on my side.
Wow.
And so they're like, what happened is the day before my vacation, I took care of a mom who didn't want her cervix checked. And she'd said, I don't want my cervix checked. I'm like, I don't want to check your cervix. Great. We'll make the midwife do it. That's what she does anyways. And she was a really sweet patient. Her first baby was super fast, like pushed for 15 minutes, baby born in like 3 hours, like crazy fast.
Wait, this is a separate incident?
Separate incident,
oh,
yeah.
Okay,
so it's like I was in trouble, came back to work, had a buddy. Oh, okay. See, I get ahead of myself.
Okay, I'm like,
wait, where are we?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
That unit was really busy.
Okay.
And we didn't get breaks on the regular. So me having a babysitter meant that my coworkers didn't get a break.
Okay.
Like they would literally have someone watching me and have patients having babies without nurses.
I can't.
You know what I mean? I'm like,
can't.
you guys, this isn't safe. Like, this is crazy. Let me be by myself.
Yeah.
So that hospital was like super understaffed. We couldn't keep staff. That's another thing. Like if you're going to have, I have all these things. Like if you're going to have a baby at the hospital, you should do, there's like 10 things.
Yeah.
One is like, how many travel nurses do you have? All we had there was travel nurses. Like a huge percentage.
Okay.
And so me having a babysitter meant my coworkers didn't get lunch. You know what I mean? Like meant nurses, meant patients didn't have a nurse. And I'm like, you guys, this is crazy. Like you're actually causing harm now. And so finally, I think like 2 weeks into it, I don't even know how many days. I was only on the unit for a month the whole time. So I think like I had 2 or 3 weeks of babysitting. No, I only had 3 days without a babysitter. So, but they get rid of my babysitter because they can't legally. It doesn't make sense, right? Like you're putting patients in danger so that I can be babysat.
Yeah,
this is crazy now. You're paying a nurse $100-something an hour to watch me do my job. Like this is crazy. And so that day I go to work. I feel like this is everywhere, so you're gonna have to like piece it all back together. But I go to work, and for the first time since I've been back at work, I have a natural patient that like wants a natural birth. Up until then, I had only had the hardest patients. The MAG, like preeclampsia, really, really sick.
Okay.
Multiple like unsafe patient load. And so like every day I'd be like, this is not safe. I can't take both these patients. But like it was retaliation against me. They gave me the things they knew I didn't like. I don't like taking care of patients that are sick. Some nurses do. They love hanging all the things, and they love getting someone, get them all tucked in. They have preeclampsia and we hang the magnesium and they do all this stuff. They love it. I love physiologic birth now that I know what it is. I love natural patients. And so I come to work that day and they've assigned me a natural patient on the floor, and I'm like, oh, this is a test. I knew it. I looked at my friend Maria and I'm like, well, this is a test, isn't it? She goes, yeah. So like I go into that room, no, I'm being tested, no, I'm being watched, doing everything that I know as a nurse right? I'm checking my charting, I'm making sure I do right. Mom says, I don't want my cervix checked. I say, not a problem. I don't have to check your cervix. She goes, they're going to come in here in like an hour and they want to break my bag of waters. I don't want my bag of water broken. Like, well, 1, you don't have to. 2, let's do some spinning baby stuff and see if we can't get your labor. Like, she'd been admitted before she was really in active labor.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get things going. And so we do 2 spinning babies moves and her water breaks on its own. And she's just delighted.
Okay.
You know what I mean? She's she's like, we're doing it. You know what I mean? She was so happy that she didn't have to have her bag of waters broken. I'm like, I don't have to check your cervix at all, girl. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
She gets with the shower. I tell Dad, If she starts to break down a little bit, I'm going to be right outside the door. I'm going to give you guys some privacy. Call me. And he comes out and he's like, she's going to have the baby. And so I run in and she's pushing, like pushing in the shower.
Oh
and so
my gosh.
I start getting the room ready. I call the midwife in. She's having a baby. I call the whole team in, just like I would, because she's having a baby.
Yeah.
The midwife comes in and says, did you check her cervix? I said, I haven't had time. You know what I mean? Like, I just got her from the shower to the bed. She's here. The midwife checks her cervix and she was like 7 centimeters. So it wasn't time to push yet. You have to be 10.
Okay.
Whatever.
It's so weird to me,
Yes.
the whole that you have to be a certain number that they've assigned for you to push, but go on.
Yeah. And the midwife leaves. And it's not time for you to push, stop pushing, and she leaves. And so I'm like coaching her and helping her not push as much. Like, if your cervix isn't all the way dilated, you don't want to do like big giant pushes.
Yeah.
You're just going to tire yourself. But if your body is telling you that you have to push,
I was just going to say her body was doing it for her.
Yeah. And so I'm like, just do a little grunt at the top of your contractions. Just push as little as possible, right? Versus like, don't push at all. Because I've been there when the nurse told me not to push and I could not push.
No,
I mean?
I can't even imagine because that's basically only been my experience. That's crazy.
Right. And again, I get sent to lunch. Like, see the story. I get sent to lunch at the craziest moment. I come back and the midwife is in the room and the patient is in a puddle of blood and the midwife is manually dilating her, which I had never experienced in my career. She's forcing her cervix open while mom pushes from like 7 to complete because mom could not stop pushing. Okay. Mom was unable to stop pushing.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm pregnant with my third and I'm feeling very sensitive for pregnant women in general. And I'm just like mortified. I'm mortified. She has her baby. She's so happy. And mom is just so happy. She feels so well taken care of, which I just think is crazy still. And I knew it was going to be a difficult birth and I knew I was going to need assistance. And I'm so happy you guys were here. I'm like, well, I'm happy you're happy because I'm not happy. I'm not happy because what went down in this room did not need to happen. And you were touched in a way that you didn't need to be touched. And I go out to the desk and I'm questioning the midwife and she's just being rude. I'm not going to say what she was being.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why is it okay for you to open up her cervix? And that doesn't risk her bleeding, but she can't open up her own cervix by pushing, right? Like,
unbelievable.
Because that's the thing. It's like, if you push too soon, you're going to bleed. I'm like, but you're opening the cervix from the outside. She would open it from the inside. It's no different.
No.
You know what I mean? And so I'm questioning her about that, and she's getting like really rude. And I'm like, whatever. I go home, and I'm, at that point, when I'd come back to work, I went to work every day crying. I came home from work every day crying. Every day was hell. And I was like, am I supposed to be here? Like, am I supposed to still be on this unit? Am I still supposed to be a nurse? Or am I just being stubborn and I'm scared of the next step? And I'd like ask that question out loud to my I had 2 coworkers I could talk to. And I would just ask all the time, like, should I be here? Like, yeah, you should be here. You need to keep fighting. I'm like, if they fire me, they're building me a platform. I'm going to get loud. You know what I mean? Like, this is wrong. And I get fired. I got fired for not checking her cervix.
It's unbelievable.
When she told me not to. And so their big thing is like, the letter they sent me was so mean. It was like, you put that mom at risk. You were unsafe. She could have bled, this and this and this. But then I read research. There is no research against pushing too soon. Again, it's something made up on the unit.
Yeah.
And really, so I texted my friend, the nurse, the midwife, who I thought was my friend.
Yeah.
And I said, I wish I should read the text. It was like, where do we get this idea that women can't push if they feel the need to push?
Yeah.
I didn't tell her to push. She was pushing on her own because her body was telling her to push.
Which the term for that, fetal ejection reflex, right? Yes,
and
it's like a thing.
She would have just had a baby if we had not stopped her, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, is there actual science to back this? Or is this just a bunch of white men telling us that we can't push because they had us pushing us too soon back in the day and we're tearing cervixes? And she sends me a text message, too soon to push, and that was it. And so when I got in trouble, I'm back in the office, discovery meeting again, and I don't know why I'm there. They read my text message from that midwife to me.
Incredible.
And I'm
incredible.
Like, that was my friend.
Yeah.
No, she was my friend. Like, I helped her move. I watched her chickens while she was gone. She was my friend. And so the 2 times I got in trouble at work were the 2 midwives. When I came back to work from being in trouble, I saw the midwife from the first birth.
Wow.
And when she saw me, it was like she'd seen a ghost. She went pale. And then she just like turned. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you didn't warn the midwife I was coming back? And obviously you didn't. And she didn't want to see me.
Yeah.
Like, midwife is with woman. Those are the 2 that should have been my advocates and been those family advocates. And they were the 2 that led the witch hunt against me. It's so sad.
I mean, yeah, I also would imagine that being a midwife in a hospital is a different situation. Even though I know that there's a big conversation going on around midwives in general, because wasn't the Midwifery Association recently like acquired by the Nursing Association or something
probably.
like that?
I haven't
Within
kept
the
up.
last, I think, year or 2. And, I know that that's a reason, one of the reasons you didn't go on to be a midwife because of the rules that hang over midwives. But I would especially imagine that
really
being
hard.
a midwife in a hospital is a totally different beast.
And the midwives in the hospital usually like it. they like hospital birth. You know what I mean?
Yes,
It's not like
yes.
they're not home birth midwives that have gone to the hospital who are unsatisfied with care. They're hospital birth midwives who like the policy, who like the rules, and who have been medicalized. They're no longer with women. They're with the hospital. They're with policies.
Yeah, the fetal ejection reflex thing is really interesting to me. When my mom was giving birth to my sister, when she showed up to the hospital, she said to them, I'm about to have this baby. And they were like, no, you're not. You're only, it was like 4 or 5 centimeters, something like that. And my mom was like, I've had 2 babies. I know what's going on in my body. I'm going to have this baby. Give me my epidural, because she really wanted an epidural. And they were like, no, you can wait a little bit more. And then within a matter of like 15 minutes or something like that, she was all of a sudden like 10 centimeters or whatever, like ready to go. And they're like, oh my gosh, this happened so fast. We didn't know. And she's like, I knew. I tried to tell you. And that is what's truly amazing to me about the medicalization of birth, is that they've somehow taken something that has mystery, that is individual to women, that can change at its own speed, and then they've tried to attach numbers to it. Like, especially for me and like my artsy fartsy, like fluffy self, the fact that these precise numbers and measurements are attached to women and what's going on in their vaginas is crazy to me. So that's the first thing that you made me think about, is just the whole fetal ejection reflex thing. And then the other thing is just, I mean, really what your whole conversation is about is this idea of informed consent, especially when it comes to hands on the vagina. It is really amazing to me. I don't know if it was, I call her Gypsy Witch, but I think her name is Yolanda Norris Clark, for anyone that wants a real name. But I think it was her, she might have been the first person I heard talking about this, that like, the touching that goes on of a woman's private parts in the hospital, like anywhere else, would be considered assault if you weren't asking first. And I do understand that there is a presupposition there of like, okay, you're in the hospital. That's kind of the whole point as to what makes it not assault. But if you hear women's stories, that is not oftentimes that is not the way that they're left feeling after. Like, oh, whatever, no biggie, because it was the hospital. It's still their private parts. And the fact that like we've taken, I think she's the one that said this, that it's kind of like it's furthering almost like porn culture. Sorry for like little ears, but like this idea that sex isn't something that's magical and intimate and creating something between these two people that is beautiful and magical and special. It's something that just, people can just come in and check and stick their hand in and no big deal and spread your legs and I'm going to measure and I'm going to move this around and like, just keep them open. And it's so, I feel like creepy is the creepy key word of this episode.
And Wapio talks about that too, about like, it's not normal for a man to see another man touch his wife like that. And to make it so normal. You know what I mean? Like, that's intimate touch, like it messes with everyone.
And this isn't, I feel like maybe this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. This is not meant to shame anyone that's watching this that has had a different type of birth, or even, I'll throw this out there, maybe you even felt comfortable and great with your birth in the hospital. This isn't meant to shame you. This is meant to bring forward a very real feeling that a lot of women have, or maybe have buried underneath a layer of like logic that they're trying to feed themselves. It's fine. It was just this. It's okay. But they feel like it wasn't. It's to let you know, like, hey, you're not alone in thinking that this wasn't okay. Other women feel this way as well. So yeah, but I love that Wapio, the way that she talked about that. Oof, when I found her videos at the end of my pregnancy because of you, I was just like, I mean, I'm getting chills thinking about it. Like, my mind was blown. To me, the way that God has developed the creation of people is so intimate, so special, so magical. And the hospital, in my opinion, takes that and strips that away.
And you're right, it is like the porn industry, because the baby is the product of sex, right? And birth sounds sexy. Like if you,
crazy.
It really does though. Like if you sat outside a room and you didn't know it was birth,
that's what you
know what I mean.
Exactly.
You'd be like, is that birth? Is that sexy
sex
time?
or is it? Yeah.
Like, and so because we feel uncomfortable with sex in our culture, which is so weird that we're like so uncomfortable with sex, and then we porn and everything, right? We've taken the sex out of birth, and we give the epidurals, and we make things quiet, and we tell women to be quiet. Because we feel uncomfortable.
Which was another reason I didn't go to a hospital, because I knew I would be the one that they're like, quiet, quiet, quiet.
Okay.
And I couldn't be quiet. I really do. I mean, I know I just said this. It's this feeling of like not wanting to make other people feel uncomfortable, but it's a completely different, like it is a paradigm shift to see that like in my worldview now, the hospital is for legit emergencies. And when they can step in, they do have access to the life-saving technology. What were you going to say?
I've seen babies be saved.
Like real emergencies.
And really, but the baby, and I always think of this woman, again, I don't know her name. I remember her face, I remember her thing. She called me and she was like, I feel like something's off with my baby. And I asked her all the questions that I ask. Okay, are you leaking fluid? No. Are you bleeding? No. Do you have a temperature? No. Do you have a headache? No. I'm like, is your baby moving? Yeah. I'm like, it sounds like baby, everything's fine. But if you feel like something's up and it's the middle of the night, you're not going to sleep. Just come in and let's check it out.
Yeah.
And she came in and her baby was in fetal distress. She was having contractions she couldn't feel. We had an emergency C-section. We had that baby out in 15 minutes. Like her baby was on the verge of death.
Wow.
She saved her baby's life.
That's incredible.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
She knew though.
Yes.
And in that situation, yeah, I love modern medicine.
Yeah, and that's the nuance in the conversation that I think a lot of people don't see. It's just like, oh, so you think it's all bad. It's like, it's not that it's all bad. The inventions, the things that have come out in the last 100 years can legitimately be life-saving. But there's this idea that instead of them being used sparingly and appropriately for emergencies, suddenly we can use these things to control everything, or that it's needed for everyone. And we've instead pushed aside, well, in my view, the beauty of what God created, like the way that God created things to go. But also, what's his name? That doctor out of California who used to be the head of Cedars-Sinai and obstetrician, and now he's Dr. Stu Fishburne. Yes. He talks about this. He's like, you look at birth in nature, and it's nothing like what we're doing in the hospital. But when you look at a mom and home birth, it's like it is in nature. Like it's meant to go a certain way, and somehow the nuance has been lost, and instead of it being just emergency life-saving protocols, it's like, oh, this is what it is across the board, and has created unintended consequences in my world.
We just bring fear into everything. It's always worst case. It's like, even when your son hit his head, I'm like, okay, what's worst case? What are we worried about? What's worst case? Let's go there and let's see if we're there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like everything is worst case all the time, even if the risk is like 0.005.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, tell me the risk. I want to know the actual risk of this, so I can make an informed decision. Talking about animal birth, becoming a homesteader has just added another layer to this, right? Because like I started as a modern hippie nurse, then questioning things, then became a free birther, and then watching the farm, I realized, oh my gosh, we're messing up farm birth too.
Unbelievable.
You know what I mean? Like we have animals
I don't know
that
what you
can't,
mean, but I can imagine.
We have animals that can't give birth on their own because we've intervened so many times. Yeah.
Wow.
We have like turkeys. I always talk about the turkeys. The turkeys cannot mother because they've been in hatcheries for so long.
Wow.
They have forgotten the ability to mother, right? They cannot keep babies alive. And the chickens haven't lost it because chickens don't just live one season. Turkeys, it's one season. They get bought, they get raised, they get butchered. They get bought, they get raised, they get butchered. I have tried so hard to get my turkeys to mother, and they cannot do it. They can't keep babies alive.
Isn't that incredible?
How long until we lose the capacity to mother?
Oh gosh.
You know what I mean? How long until we lose the capacity to birth?
I mean, well, that's
We're
the
not
thing.
that
You've
far
already
away.
seen that so many of us have already lost that capacity. I mean, I mentioned my mom before. My mom is fairly hippie-ish, and it's still been a journey for her to watch me walk this out, and she's been supportive and encouraging, but it really has had to be me and Dan essentially being like, no, this is what we need to do. Like, we're not going to follow our fear here because our gut says that this is actually what's right. So that's a really interesting point too, that it has generally in our culture been lost, though it's so exciting because I truly think through the beauty of the internet, she says, yes, it's true. There has been a huge resurgence. Like, I don't know what the numbers are, but I feel like just anecdotally, I look around me and I'm like, dude, there are definitely more natural home birthers now.
We're talking about it now. Like, we brought awareness to it because I'm not the first person who says that we're going to lose the capacity to birth. Michel Odent calls it out. He's amazing. He's a OB in France, and he like literally he became an OB on accident, and the midwife was running. He goes, well, why are you doing that? And she goes, well, I don't know. I learned it in medical school. And he goes, what happens if you don't do it? Well, I don't know. Let's not do it. Cutting the cord was what it was.
Wow.
And so they stopped cutting the cord. You know, like he would just ask why, because he had no experience in OB, and then he realized, oh, moms need to be undisturbed. And so his hospital is a completely undisturbed hospital.
Wow.
And they don't do epidurals. His C-section rate is like nothing.
Wow, I'm gonna have to look this guy up.
His books are so good. They're really short, like they're like a nighttime read. They're really easy. Birth Reborn, it's such a good book. And it's like an OB, okay, we have an OB on our side. An OB that really gets it, who has created a hospital that allows. And so high-risk women come from all over the country to come see him.
Wow, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanna back up really quick. We are kind of nearing the end, but I wanna hear how you got to the point, like what was your free birth experience like? Because you've now free birthed twice.
Twice, yeah. And so I've had 2 natural hospital births. And Everett's birth was super traumatic, okay? Like, it was a natural birth. I knew that I didn't want to be in the hospital because I knew that the longer I was in the hospital, the more they could mess with me, right?
Yeah.
And so I got to the hospital in transition, and the midwife was in there 5 times before I had him asking me to put an IV in. And I was like, I don't want an IV. Well, you're GBS positive. And I'm like, but she's like, you should take vancomycin, which is like a heavy-duty antibiotic because I'm allergic to penicillin. And I'm like, I'm not taking vancomycin. Like I said, I'm sensitive to all drugs. You mean have a vaccine, have an antibiotic reaction right here in labor?
Okay.
No. Well, your baby looks a little sleepy. We should have an IV. No, like every excuse, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was there for 45 minutes. Then she comes in and she goes, oh, I get it. You want a home birth in the hospital. I can do that. And I let down my guard and trusted her. And the birth was super traumatic. Like, it was horrible. She told me to stop pushing. She got her IV before I had Everett. Then Everett, after he was born, he like had a ton of meconium poop on his way out. He was like, literally, he was green. The water was green. There was poop everywhere.
Oh, gosh.
And then he didn't poop for 3 days. And they were convinced that he had this like rare disease. And so I signed the discharge paperwork. I was literally out the door and a new pediatrician came on. Another one of those things where I learned like, how much can change in 1 minute, you know, like when you're a patient.
Wow.
So I've signed discharge paperwork. The pediatrician says we're fine to go. Everyone's fine that he hasn't pooped. He pooped so much on the way out. New pediatrician comes on and she goes, your baby could go septic. I'm sending you to the NICU. And like cancels the discharge. Whew. And Everett's first ever car ride was an ambulance. Really a lot of trauma, a lot of anxiety that I had to get rid of after that birth. And then I didn't want babies. You know, I didn't want any more babies because I had horrible postpartum anxiety. It wasn't my anxiety, it was the hospital's anxiety. When we're having babies, we are more physically and spiritually open than we are ever, right? Your cervix is 10. Your body is literally the most open it will ever be. Yeah. And with that comes spiritual opening and seeds of anxiety and seeds of depression and seeds of fear can be planted. And that's what happened to me. But Everett and Ryan wanted a baby, and so they were both asking me for a baby, and I said, fine. You have 1 month to get me pregnant. It took us 3 years to have Everett, so I felt like I was pretty safe.
Wow.
You have 1 month to get me pregnant, and I'll do everything I did. I'll take all my supplements and all the things I did, because I had made like a legit protocol for myself for Everett, and if we get pregnant in a month, then it's meant to be. And I got pregnant in a month.
That's incredible.
And so then Eloise was almost born in the car. Same thing. I'm like, I'm not going to the hospital a minute before it's time. You know what I mean? Like, I know what they do to you in the hospital.
I didn't know Eloise was born in the car.
No, almost. She was crowning in the car.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
We were in the ER for like 30 seconds.
Whoa.
Which I do not recommend. Like, it was like the most wild I felt in birth though. I felt like I was a wolf. I was like howling out the window, like legit like wild birthing in the car.
That's incredible.
And then Eldon, I was losing my job. I actually just lost my job. I didn't have insurance and I just moved to Idaho. We just got the house.
Wow.
And so I didn't know any midwives. And you know, all my births I had wanted a home birth, but I didn't want to pay that $5,000 for a home birth. And with my hospitals, it was always free. And so it's really hard as a nurse, like, free? $5,000.
Yeah,
free? $5,000.
exactly.
And so, again, I'm like, well, I don't really want to pay a midwife, and I don't really know who I would pick, and I feel like, you know, and so I'm like, I'm going to do a free birth. And Wapio is who gave me the idea of a free birth because, okay, hold on a second. I'm trying to tell stories. So my first experience with a free birth was a mom who had been bleeding in her bathtub for like hours. And so she came into the hospital because she was like literally scared for her life.
Oh my gosh.
And she came in and her baby was almost dead, like emergency C-section. And so I didn't take care of this mother, but like I heard the story passed down, right? And of course it's being like dramatized by the nurses and like unnice things were said. And she was in the operating room screaming for her placenta, then took a bite of her placenta, which just like, just blew everyone's mind. Same thing, like blew everyone's mind. Like, they refused antibiotics. I'm like, well, of course now I know. Of course they refused antibiotics. I went this side. So yeah, she's in the operating room, just had C-section, screaming for her placenta, and just takes a bite of it raw.
Wow.
And just like blows the nurses' minds, right? They refused antibiotics. Like, how could they refuse antibiotics? We're saving their baby's life. And her baby like had to have chest compressions, was on the verge of dying. And so, like, that was my first experience with free births. Like, you know, of course I'm not going to do a free birth. It's super dangerous. Same thing. Of course I'm not going to do a home birth. It's super dangerous. And then Wapio softened that, and then I'm like, I can do this. And
which I do feel like nurses see the worst of all of those things gone bad. So of course the view is like, oh, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. It's like Dan says the same thing about police officers.
Yeah, and that's
like
the stories,
they see the worst.
Yes, the stories about home birth aren't the good home births. It's the home birth transfers. And it's the home birth transfers that have been pushed too long because no one wants to go to the hospital because they don't get taken care of. Oh, with Eloise, I caught both of my babies in the hospital. Okay. And Ryan was like a super hypochondriac, you know, most of our relationship. And like his journey has been interesting because like the hospital system has let him down and that's healed his hypochondria over and over again. And so we get to the hospital and I deliver my own baby and we leave like 12 hours later. He goes, oh my gosh, you didn't even need them. Like, why did we even come? I'm like, exactly. Yes. Welcome to the home birth realm because he was not down for a home birth. Yeah. And so he was totally on board for a free birth. You know, like he had like realized like we don't need anybody. And it was the coolest experience. Delivering him, like when I was like the whole birth. So first off, I was midwifing myself, which you don't want to do. Like I was stuck in my beta brain. You know, Wapio talks about the brainwave states. Okay. And beta is like our to-do list brain, you know. And I'm like checking myself and trying to figure out where I'm in my labor, and I'm analyzing myself, and like it makes labor excruciating when you do that. Interesting. When you can't get out of your own mind. Okay. And finally, I'm like, it doesn't matter, and I just kind of like melt into the water. I remember like having this moment where I'm like, I am where I am. I'm having my baby today. It doesn't matter what my cervix is doing, you know. And I just released. And that's where I went into transition.
Wow.
And with him, I got the quietude, which is part of Wapio's holistic stages of labor, where right after transition, everything stops. It's like, I saw this purple tube of light and I just like melted into the water and I just like rested. And it was so beautiful, just like this peace before I met my baby.
Wow.
And then like fetal ejection reflex, like he is coming, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I have my hand there and I felt him do, I felt him do the cardinal movements of birth, which is something that doesn't happen in the hospital, right? Every baby in the hospital, their head comes out, the doctor grabs it and starts twisting and turning them and getting them out and pulling them out, yanking them out. And I felt him find his own way. And it was like my hands had eyes.
Wow.
And I could feel,
I mean, I would offer to hold her, but I think I'll make it worse.
she'll be okay. I felt him move and it was like I could see him with my hands. And it was like one of the coolest experiences of my life to like feel my baby navigate the palace and find himself out. And then he was like there. It was just like so peaceful. Wow. You know what I mean? Like my kids are there. Eloise is asleep. Everett wakes her up and she runs and gets me chocolate. She like force feeds me this piece of chocolate.
Oh,
the best piece of chocolate I've ever had. Like
of course.
Her little 3-year-old mind like had that planned.
Yeah.
So cute.
It's
and
so
then I just
cute.
like gotta go into my bed and like be home and be taken care of. Like it was incredible. There was no anxiety. There was no worry. Because like in hospital births, it's all the anxiety. It's all adrenaline. Like, the baby. Like you would think they'd never seen a baby be born. I'm like, you guys, we do this every day. Every single day. Why are we freaking out? Like
it's
every day.
It's a baby.
My last job, we did it like 14 times a day. And every time it's like, rah! And I'm like, you guys.
Funny.
This is supposed to be a peaceful moment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, no baby wants to be born into a room full of anxiety.
Yeah.
You know? And Eldon, my third, has been a really hard baby. And I know that had he been born, I was so stressed for the whole pregnancy with the hospital and with the job. My cortisol level was just through the roof. I mean, like I said, I cried on the way to work, on the way home from work. I was questioning what I was doing. That's hard when a baby's in utero. And he is like jacked up because of it. Like I know that's why, because I was jacked up. Had he been born in the hospital into a bath of anxiety, it would have been so much worse.
Dude.
You know what I mean? Like I needed that quiet peace to really bond with him good. Because he was he cried at me for like 18 months straight. You know what I mean? Like
baby.
I needed that free birth to be able to connect with him the way we did to get us through that hard time.
Wow. Okay, so then, I mean, I don't really know many people that have free births, honestly. So I know a lot of home birthers, but I don't really know many free birthers. So that went so well for you that you decided to have another free birth.
And like my placenta took like an hour, you know, and I just waited. Like there was no bleeding. I was like, took a little bit of time to transition, and the placenta's job is to advocate for the baby. The whole pregnancy, that's what it does. It makes sure the baby gets what it needs. Of course it does that on the outside. And so until the placenta knew the baby was fine, it hung on and it gave him a little bit of oxygen and a little bit of blood until it was like, oh, he's going to be okay.
Wow.
He's with mom. He's safe. And then the placenta released, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, well, why would I have anybody? I wanted somebody there because the hard part with that was like clean up afterwards, right?
Yeah,
like you just had a baby, there's blood, like it's a mess.
That was a nice thing about having a midwife is like I didn't have to clean anything.
Yes, and so like this time I wanted backup, and so my friend Kylie was going to be my backup.
Okay.
And I was in denial. Like that's one of my signs of labor is denial. And so I'm like having contractions and I'm making dinner. And
Which me too, when you said that to me when I was in labor, you're like, I think that it might be happening because one of my signs is denial. I was like, I think you're right.
It's happening. So I'm like making dinner. I'm like breathing through contractions. And Everett looks at me and he goes, you want me to start the bath for you? I'm like, no, it's okay. Like we're going to have time. It's just started. And so that birth, her birth was like different than all of them. It started with my water breaking. I woke up to a pop, which my water always breaks like in transition, which is like physiologically more normal for water to break at the end. You know, another plug at not breaking your bag of waters. It's there to help baby find position. It's there to cushion baby. Don't break it. Let it break on its own.
I hear it hurts a lot more if the bag breaks
and
earlier.
so, but like with her, like I woke up to this pop and I'm like, I think that was my waters, but then no waters really came out. And then later on, waters started to come out and there was a little bit of meconium and I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a baby today. So I'm making dinner and I'm having contractions and Everett's like, I think you should get in the bath. And I'm like, I'm going to finish dinner. It's going to be okay. And I'm like working. I'm like passing off like, well, you do the carrots because I can't really focus on carrots. And you do the celery. And like, you're doing great with the celery. Like, let's get it all in the pot. Let's get it in the oven. So I get it all in the pot. We made pot roast. I got it in the oven. And then I get in the bath. And from getting in the bath to baby was less than an hour.
Oh my gosh.
I don't recommend it. It's called a precip delivery. No.
Precip. Oh, because the water broke.
Because it's so fast.
Oh, because it's so fast.
And so it's like all of labor in an hour. It is wild. Breathing out the window. Movement out the window. It is just raw screaming. It wasn't screaming, but you know what I mean? It's like baby is like power. It's just raw power. We're having a baby today.
Wow.
And me and my husband are separated. I think I mentioned that at the beginning, but we have been in a really bad place and he's not been a safe place for me. And so I'm like, I'm really sorry, but you can't come to the birth. And I'm sorry to take this experience away from you, but I have to feel safe or this baby, it's not going to happen. You know, that's one of the things mammals need for birth is safety. You know, that's why the hospital, why so much comes up too, is because most women don't really feel safe in the hospital, even though they can't verbalize it.
And that is the top thing, I think, for all women giving birth. And Christy said this in her interview too. She's like, I'm not someone who thinks that everyone should have a home birth.
Exactly.
So I think that everyone should birth where they feel legitimately safe.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the hospital. And I've had a friend who I'm like, she's like, I want a home birth. I'm like, you can't have a home birth.
Yeah.
You want it, but you don't feel safe. You feel safe in the hospital.
That's exactly
So let me come take care of you and make sure you get taken care of in the hospital.
And I have a friend that's like that wants home birth so bad, but she hasn't been able to do it because she doesn't feel safe at home.
Exactly. And you'll see, labor will just stop because you don't feel safe. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's peace is the number one thing you need for a good labor.
For it to for the hormonal cascade to play out how it's supposed to play out. And that's the thing is, and I was thinking about this earlier, part of the issue with hospital births, right, is that you're essentially, if you're not safe, if you're in an environment you don't feel comfortable in, depending on all of the stuff flying in the air, the lights, whatever, you are disrupting what I think essentially makes birth, which is the hormonal cascade.
And part of it is we're constantly bringing mom back into her beta brain.
Yes.
Do you want to drink water?
Oh
Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you need this? Well, when was the last period? Are you allergic to drugs? Instead of just letting her go to labor land.
Oh, dude, I'd be so ticked. That's all I could think about when you were talking about the Indian couple in the hospital, that she wasn't answering anyone. I'm like, I don't even know how she lived. Like, literally.
That was the first thing they said is like, Dad is going to be answering all questions for her.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can't even fathom.
She has hard work to do. And when her last period is not important right now.
No.
If she's allergic to drugs, it's not important right now. She is meeting the soul of her child, like, and bringing it back to earth.
It's all consuming. I can't imagine, because when my midwife showed up, only for the last like 15 minutes, I told you this, I was like, I can't even think, I can't hear you. So when she just had a basic question, like, where are the receiving blankets? I'm like, I don't know. So like, I don't know how.
I'm doing important things here.
Yeah.
Receiving blankets don't matter anymore.
No, you can't even be, I mean, you're not even on this planet. I guess that's why they call it labor land.
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know if this is like an abrupt shift, but obviously you and I could go on for like ever.
Well, let me just quick finish her birth.
Oh, yes, go on. Okay, yes.
So I get in the bathtub, I text my friend, and I'm like, hey, come in 2 hours, we're having a baby.
Yeah.
And the next contraction hits, and I go, probably make that an hour. And then the next contraction hits, and I'm like, oh, you should come right now. Yeah. And she was born like 11 minutes later. Yeah.
Sorry, that's the oven. We're about to make nachos. Go on.
And it was really cool because it was just me and the kids.
Wow.
And I learned really at that birth, like how capable I really am, because I was able to be in labor land and be present with my other children. And
wow,
so, like,
that's incredible.
It's hard. My life is hard right now, but I'm finding my way. And so, like, they'd come in, I'd be like, hey, I need a glass of water, a cup of ice. It's like they'd come in, like, and check on me and bring me, like, whatever supplies I needed.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, if you want to see your baby be born, you probably should stay this time. And so they all came in, and even Eldon was there to watch it.
Wow.
And it was so cool because, like, I have it on video, and I look over at Eloise. I'm like, have you guys had lunch? She's like, everyone, you guys probably should eat something. Get them a cheese stick. Like, everyone have a cheese stick before. And I'm like, literally about to push this baby out, like, making sure my other kids are taken care of. And her head comes out. She's my biggest baby. She was like 9'4", 9'6". I don't know why I keep forgetting. It's a big baby for me.
Wow.
And I'm a tall woman, but I usually birth like 7-pounders. And her head comes out, and I push, and her head is just there, and I push, and her head is just there. And so I get on my hands and knees, and like her shoulder was stuck. And Eldon comes up and he goes, Mommy, you can't push your baby out? My little 3-year-old knew the shoulder was stuck.
Wow.
So connected. Isn't that so amazing? Like, and he did it so peacefully, and I was like, you're right. And so I just reached in, and I just pulled out her posterior shoulder, and it was barely stuck, and I just helped her deliver, and then she was out.
Wow.
Like, even in emergency. And with her, I had severe preeclampsia. My blood pressure got up to like 210/108.
That's right. I had someone asking in my DMs the other day about preeclampsia and what my thoughts were, and I thought of you.
Preeclampsia is a disease of nurturing. And so in my case, I wasn't nurturing myself, and my heart, I'm not going to cry. My heart was calling out to my husband, seeing if an emergency could like wake him up, and it didn't. It didn't. It's really sad. My mind knew, but my heart needed that confirmation, and so my blood pressure went up. And then I just spent 3 days really taking care of myself. I realized, like, I was doing everything. I was a single mom. I was trying to run the farm and do all the things. My body was like, no, it's time to focus on this baby. Yeah. And so really just like eating a ton of protein, taking a bath every day, focusing on minerals. My blood pressure came back to normal. I had like pitting edema. My feet were like clown feet, like cartoon feet.
Wow.
And I had a horrible headache that I thought was a migraine. And like the second time it happened, I was like, I'm a labor and delivery nurse. I have a headache, and I'm seeing sparkles before my eyes. Of course I should check my blood pressure.
Oh,
but I'm like, it's the first question I asked everyone as a nurse. You know what I mean? And I didn't even think of it when it happened to me. But it's possible to turn it around. Like, if I'd gone to the hospital, they would have induced me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They would have said I was severe preeclampsia. In the medical model, it can't be turned around. You're preeclamptic forever.
Which is incredible.
And then my blood pressure would stay low unless me and my husband were talking. Then it would be high again. And so it was really like, my heart was like, this is too much right now. You know what I mean? was affecting my physiology at that point. And so, just me and my 3 kids when this little one was born, which is really cool.
So
it makes for
wild.
quite the story. And she's been amazing.
Quite the story. Okay, so now this is what I meant about like kind of an abrupt, but I just have to know if someone is thinking about home birth, considering home birth or free birth, I guess either way, but what would be, I guess, like your top either tips or just your general thought? What do you wish you could convey to this woman that's thinking about it?
The husbands always say no.
Isn't that funny?
Yes. Okay, give me a second. What do you need?
Oh, we're so close.
So if I could like talk to every pregnant mother, I'd say your husband is going to push back, and that's totally normal.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that like
Isn't that-
all the husbands say no, and so send them my way. I love talking to husbands.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I can convince any husband that the home birth is better because
Yeah.
when they hear my stories and they hear the fight they're up against at the hospital, they don't want to do it.
That,
You know what I
okay.
mean? Like, can you have a good birth in the hospital? Sure you can.
All I was going to say was exactly what you said, which is that even though he was for it from the beginning, what solidified it more for him is kind of like what you're talking about. Once he watched The Business of Being Born, I feel like guys just need to get their head around it.
They need statistics.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? They need to know, like, why is it safer? What are the statistics of harm in the hospital? And also, like, a lot of the stuff we see in the hospital is caused by the hospital.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that when I was a nurse, that my actions actually caused complications.
Yeah.
The induction caused the complication. The breaking the bag of waters caused the infection. So when people are like, oh, home birth is safer, I'm like, I don't know about that because...
You mean more dangerous?
Yeah, home birth is more dangerous. No, because if we're not doing all these interventions, the risk is lower.
Yes.
I think my kids are here too now.
Yeah. Well, that's what Dr. Stu says. He says that anyone that says it's more dangerous has not actually seen, like hospital people will be like, does this happen at home? And he's like, oh, you don't know how home birth works. Like, no, these issues don't even come up.
Well, and do you want birth light or do you want the full transformation? You know what I mean? Like, I want the full transformation. I want to experience everything there is because birth is, I am transformed at every birth. I come out of every birth a little bit different and a little bit better.
Yeah.
And that gets missed in the hospital because intuition gets stifled at every turn. They're like, oh, your baby's big. And mom's like, well, I don't think my baby's big. Let's do an ultrasound. Oh, yeah, your baby's 10 pounds.
Yeah.
You need an induction. You need a C-section. And baby comes out 7 pounds.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
And
or in my case, it was, oh, you have IUGR potentially. And it's like, baby's fine.
And it's like we stifle mom's intuition, and that's pregnancy and birth. You're supposed to really lean into your intuition, and the hospital system blocks it at every turn.
Yeah.
Do you want that? Do you want that? Do you want to start your motherhood not trusting yourself because you've not been allowed to?
Yeah. So basically, expect the dad to push back
Yes.
and then educate because education can bring more empowerment in this case.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in all cases, but you know what I mean. All right. Is that it? Is there anything else you want to say before we go, or just send them off?
Can I just talk about the matrona real fast?
Yeah, go for it. Oh yeah,
So
duh.
my job. So I work for the matrona now. So it's really cool because like I went from like, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna make money?
Yeah.
And Wapio really just like opening her wings to me and really passing down her legacy to me and teaching me how she's got to where she is.
Yeah.
And so I'm helping run the matrona now, and I'm helping run the birthkeeper cohort, and I love having that platform to share my stories.
Yeah.
And so you want more stories from me? That's where my stories are. You know, I get to be
Yes.
on there. I get to teach the students. And I really get to show them both aspects. Like, here's what the medical model offers, here's what we offer, and that way you have a full bag of rice to offer the families.
Yeah.
Take what you want. And that's where I am now. You know what I mean? Like, I know what's best for me. I don't know what's best for you.
Yeah.
Like we said, some moms, a hospital birth is best.
Yeah.
Take what you need. I'll help you find your way wherever you are.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
that's the knowledge I get to share, which is really exciting.
It's so exciting. I'm going to have all of Jess's stuff linked down below. Her stuff that she's doing with Matrona, her personal account with her farm, and her birthkeeper account.
Yep.
So check out Jess. Jess has changed my life for sure.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you sitting down and doing this with me. And I hope that this was a blessing for you guys as well. And yeah, all right.
Thank
That's
you.
it, guys. You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.